Kido.
Never mind Hapkido.
No, that's what you say. You're in the sea, and you kind of karate. No, you do. You karate bash the sea. Honestly.
From the talk of the town to the whisper of the village.
Count to number 4, please.
Breaking global sports news and the answers to questions you never even thought to ask.
Has anyone got a spoon for my kiwi fruit?
The two mics
Just like in that film.
on Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
Some scientists in America have now actually developed a beating orgasm from stem cells. A beating organism.
Orgasm. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say that it's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. A very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Well, a very good morning to you as well, Mike. I want to extend the hand of comradeship and.
Well, that's very nice. That's
and
very
sort of
pleasant.
thing.
That's very pleasant because, I mean, frankly, in the last few days,
Well-
we've been doing shows together. You've been
Yeah.
quite aggressive in the
Well,
opening section
I've
of the
been
show.
getting a few comments from, from some of our listeners
Yeah.
and a lot of our followers
Yes.
saying that why are we going head to head
Yeah.
right from the start of the show? Why
Yeah.
do we argue in the first
Right.
few minutes of the
Well, it's
show?
usually because you start attacking me.
No, I don't start attacking you. It's
Yeah.
just that your ill thought out ways to introduce me to the show.
Well, I just said a very good morning to you, as I always say.
Yeah, but this very good morning thing.
You think that's in some way an
Well,
insult? Well, what would you like me to say?
Well,
What would you like me to say?
I'd like you to say it with a bit more reverence, really, because because we do have an equal standing in this relationship,
Of course.
and it's almost like you're serving me up on a plate. You know what I mean?
Are
on
you
a
sure you're not
platter.
getting paranoid in your
No,
old
I'm not
age?
getting paranoid. I'm not getting paranoid. Now, the other thing
Well, would
is,
you like me to practice it? I'll tell you what, we'll practice it in the next hour.
Yes.
And maybe we can discuss what you'd like me to say. Maybe you could write something down for me to say, and I can just read it out.
I don't feel I should have to write your scripts for you.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have any scripts anywhere else,
No.
so why on earth we'd need one for you to
Well, all I can
introduce me
say
to the
is
show in a proper fashion,
when I welcome
you know?
you to the show, I welcome you
In a
with
proper
all the
fashion.
warmth that I can muster.
Proper fashion, noting and signalling and acknowledging,
Yeah.
you know, my presence here in the proper way.
All I can say is that I can be as respectful to you as I just have been. That's as
And by the
respectful
way,
as I get.
by the way,
Yeah.
you know,
Considering how you slag me off all the
Oh,
time.
no, I don't slag
I'm
you off,
surprised
but,
that I
I
say
mean,
good morning to you at all.
I suppose we're getting the result of winners and losers tonight.
We are.
And once again,
There was no need to extend the vote after beyond midnight.
Yeah. Once again, I think you've done it again. Now, it's now becoming apparently, eminently clear that you've brainwashed a lot of the
I
audience
haven't
into
brainwashed
thinking
anyone.
that you should win every week.
Not at all.
And I'm delighted to say I've had a few texts with pictures attached which show all your followers, right?
Yeah.
All the people voting for you
Yeah.
as a bunch of maggots in a tin all crawling over each other.
That's
That's what
nice.
they are, maggots.
That's nice.
Okay?
That's not very
The
nice,
ones who
is it?
vote for you are maggots. The ones who vote for me are the real voice of the
Well,
populace.
actually, no. There are no people that vote for me as a general rule. You've got loads of people that vote for you all the time, regardless of how useless your winners and
But
losers
they're not
are.
useless, are they?
Well, they clearly are
One of
because you're
mine was
losing.
brilliant last night. The Brecon goalkeeper who went to the wrong ground. Except
No, that
you
was mine.
stole that. I know, you nicked it.
Well, no, I didn't nick it.
Because I magnanimously said you can go first with the losers.
Yeah.
And you stole that. You
Well,
didn't
no,
see that.
it's
I saw that in the
because- no,
Sunday
it's because-
Times.
no, it's because
in
I
a
keep-
little paragraph because,
Yeah.
you know, I apply myself.
I saw it in the Guardian.
I apply myself, you know.
I saw it in the Guardian.
Oh, you're a Guardian reader now, are you?
I read
you're a
everything.
Guardian
I read
reader.
everything online.
Oh, I didn't know you were a Guardian
Yeah, of
reader.
course I'm a Guardian
How long
reader.
have you been a Guardian reader?
Ever since I've been reading newspapers.
But you mock Guardian readers.
Yeah, well, I don't
You
like
mock them.
everything
You
the
see-
Guardian does, but
you
actually the Guardian sport is very good.
You say, I would acknowledge that, yeah, but you say that the Guardian readers are all sort of airheads and all this kind of stuff.
Well,
you
no,
say
I
that all
think-
your
I
life.
think- I think they're
I
somewhat
don't say
deluded.
that, of course.
I think-
I respect people for their views.
I think they're somewhat deluded. Yeah, no, I'm not a big
They're
fan of
deluded. Well,
Guardian
I
readers
think
as
the
general
people who
rule.
vote for you are
But
deluded.
as a professional journalist, I read every newspaper.
The vote,
as you well know.
Well, I try to read every newspaper every day, of course. But I think people who vote for you are deluded. You've brainwashed them, and I wonder whether we're going to have to change the whole structure of this competition.
We've only just changed it.
Well, you know, I think it needs looking at.
the reason that you asked me to go first yesterday was because I gave you the choice. I said, what would you like to do?
Yeah, but I didn't expect
I've given you a change of the voting process. I changed the favourites and retweets, which you said was unfair. I gave you the new Twitter poll, which everybody asked for, or especially your fans.
I did not expect
I then gave you the right to have your name on the top. I gave you the right to speak last because you said by going first you would somehow have been given a disadvantage. Every single thing that you've asked for, I've given you, and yet you've still lost.
I did not expect you to steal my gems.
And it's now 11 to 3.
Researching.
Would you like to know what the final tally was?
Well, give it me, but I'm not going to acknowledge it. Accept it.
It's 58% to me, and 42% to you.
I don't believe this.
Total number of votes cast 1,276.
I don't believe this. I think you.
Well, I mean, I can't do anything with it.
Your people have been brainwashed. They've just been brainwashed. We're going to have a whole rethink of the whole issue.
Well,
now,
I honestly don't know what else I can do to make it more Porky friendly.
Let me tell you about the Champions League tonight.
Yeah,
don't even talk to me about the Chelsea situation with that complicated table,
I
the
can
11
talk you
points
through
each and all. I know you can, but I don't want to know. Don't talk
What do you mean
to me.
don't want to know?
Don't talk to me about the Arsenal situation. They won 3-0. Now they've got to go away and win by 2 goals, haven't they?
No,
in
2
Greece,
goals or better than 3-2 because that's how they lost the first
to
leg.
get through. But you can talk to me about Barcelona.
Okay.
I saw that game tonight.
I thought you weren't interested in Barcelona.
Barcelona.
I thought you were not interested in El Clasico when we spoke about it last week.
That's not El Clasico, is it? That is Barcelona.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you this.
Well, they do play in El Clasico.
Yes, of course they do, yeah. It isn't even worth considering any other team in the competition. Barcelona...
What about Bayern Munich?
You
see them play?
No. Barcelona...
I'll tell you what I thought was interesting.
are going to walk it.
Oh, well, you can say that.
They're going to walk it.
You can say that.
They're going to walk it. Have you seen their attack? Have you seen what their attack's like?
Well, yes, of course I have.
I mean, it's just quite stunning. Do you see Suarez's
have you just
volleyed
woken
goal?
up to this? I mean, hello.
Have you seen Suarez's volleyed goal tonight?
Hello? Did you not listen to what I said last week? When I said to you that El Clasico is coming up and Barcelona play particularly well, and I would recommend that you watch the game if you get an opportunity. You poo-pooed it and said, oh, no, I don't want to...
Don't use that word.
I'm going to use it. It's one of my favourite words.
That word doesn't mean
now
anything
that I know
to
you
me.
don't like it, I'm going to use it even more.
I'm not even going to recognise that word means nothing to me.
Well, I've explained that word to you as well.
Connotations of...
It has no connotations.
Of a 4-year-old, and I'm not recognising
it. It absolutely doesn't.
Now, what I was going to say...
Suddenly you've woken up to Barcelona.
What?
You know,
I haven't woken up to Barcelona.
$1 short and a week late, as usual.
I have not just woken up to Barcelona. I've appreciated their skills from the start of the season, but what I was going to say to you was tonight was...
I've been to the new camp. I've seen Barcelona
Tonight was especially significant.
Why?
Why? Because Messi was back.
Yeah.
Lionel Messi returned. So once again, you've got this trio of people up front, which are the best attacking trio.
He actually came on as a substitute during El Clasico, if you bother to watch it.
He didn't start the game.
No, but he came on as a substitute.
I know that. The only thing I know that.
So wasn't that his return then?
No, it wasn't his return.
Oh, so when he returned, that wasn't a return?
That wasn't a return. That was a tryout. That was a warm-up. No, it was a tryout. It was a warm-up. It was a tryout. It was an
So now they're trying out Lionel
an
Messi.
Occupational introduction into the game, whereas tonight he started...
I think I'd rather explain the Chelsea shenanigans to you.
Well, you can in a sec, because you want to try and boast to the audience about what a big brain you've got.
You said to me last week, only by comparison, you know what they say about people with big feet, by the way?
I'm not getting into that ridiculous...
I haven't got big feet, as it happens.
Smutty...
I haven't got big feet.
We don't have smut on this show.
No.
Leave that to other shows.
I haven't got big feet.
We don't do smut.
No, I'm not doing smut.
Good.
But you suggested I had big feet, which I don't. So there's another lie.
Yeah.
You said to me last week, people who go on about...
trample all over ideas.
People who go on about Barcelona are fake football fans, you said to me.
Didn't say that.
You said to me, people who try to make out that they're very sophisticated go on about Barcelona.
I didn't say that.
People who try and show that they're very sort of cosmopolitan and world knowledge, filled with world knowledge, go around supporting Barcelona. And you were completely and utterly dismissive of anyone who wanted to watch El Clasico.
No.
So I wonder what sort of bizarre, about-face, volte-face you've committed now.
If you'd have seen
Have you been drinking some Spanish wine or something?
No. If you'd have seen the way that
You're still off the Terps, by the way.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So what's that, 3 days in a row now?
3 days in a row, yeah. No Terps.
You're starting to get the shakes.
To me, white wine is literally the devil's buttermilk.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah.
And
well, you've certainly consumed gallons of it over the years.
I may never touch it again. It is, to me, it is a poisonous,
why have you suddenly come to this
foul-tasting liquid.
Why have you suddenly come to this realisation?
Because maybe I've seen
50 years of drinking it.
Maybe I've seen the fact that like many other people in this life, I've been duped by the consumerist society.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I saw
which says
tonight.
that partial bladderation should be a constant state of awareness.
Tonight, which shocked me, actually.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think I could be shocked by an
I
advert
don't think you could be shocked.
for a drink. Guinness are putting out some kind of ale.
Ale?
Have you seen an advert for it?
No.
I mean, I know that we're not supposed to talk about these things. But
well, in Ireland,
Guinness,
they have ales anyway. Guinness have ales in Ireland.
But they're putting out an ale. They're putting out like a golden ale.
Golden ale?
Yeah.
What, you mean like a bitter?
Well, I presume it's some sort of lager bitter. I don't know.
But they have them in Ireland, don't they?
I've never seen that from Guinness.
Yeah, the Guinness brewery in Ireland produces bitters, which are in pubs in Ireland,
You sure?
in Dublin. Yeah, I'm certain.
I've never seen that.
Spent loads of time there.
I'm sure you have.
Now, do you want to...
You sure you don't want me to talk you through the Chelsea?
I was going to say, do you want to waste a bit of time with telling us this ridiculous, complicated equation?
Well, I said we'll save it for Mark Donaldson, because Mark Donaldson's coming on.
Oh,
is it? Okay,
yeah.
As well.
Yeah, good idea.
If you prefer. But I've got lots of news for you. I've got some great Ask Porkies for you tonight, both
excellent.
on Facebook and on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm sorry that it's now 11-3 to me in the winners and losers.
No. You've brainwashed the people. You've brainwashed them.
We can talk about how to make it try and make it more Porky friendly, so you can maybe help yourself to win. Also, I've got some advice for you on how to be more friendly to people.
Friendly? I'm friendly to a lot of people.
And I'm going to tell you about it.
People are friendly to me. I'm friendly to them.
No.
If they're not friendly to me,
a new study's come out that says that men, generally speaking, now have fewer friends than they've ever had in their lives, and you've got no friends at all.
But
so
you
I'm
don't
going to
need
help
friends.
you. I'm going to help you to get some.
No, only the feeble-minded need friends.
I'm going to help you to get some.
Only the feeble-minded need friends,
Yeah.
OK? You go running for your friends and start whinging and moaning about what a raw deal you've had in life, you're feeble-minded, and you certainly are.
Thank you very much indeed.
Feeble-minded.
This is Talk Sport. It didn't last long, did it?
Talk Sport.
And it's in!
A diving header at the end of a 50-yard run.
From the root to the tip.
Talk Sport.
Porky coming up. We're going to have an appreciation and a sort of remembrance of George Best coming up in the next hour.
Yeah.
It's the 10th anniversary of his death.
That's very
We're going to talk
sad.
to one of his former agents, a good friend of his in his years over in America. Now, let me read you a few tweets out here before I give you some advice on how to find some more friends, right? Will says this, Porky's in a bad mood because he's lost winners and losers again. Hashtag what a shame. CLC
Not true.
Is Mike Parry feeling all right? No attacks, no anger in the first minutes. I'm feeling let down here.
Well, don't worry.
Don't worry. So John says, so that makes me half maggot, half voice of the people.
Oh, yeah.
Here's one from Kevin who says, you guys didn't have a go at each other right out of the gate. I'd think something was wrong if you didn't do that.
Exactly.
Ross says, has Porky got a personality disorder? He's knifed for 5 seconds just then and then turned into a total idiot as normal.
What? I'm not a total
And it just
idiot.
goes on and on of this.
Yeah.
Carl says, I think Parry wants you to lay out a red carpet for him by the sounds of it. He's just sore because he's lost again.
No, I'm not sore about losing at all.
Right.
Incidentally, talking about losers in life,
yes.
I see now that we're getting all the rumours we expected. Jack Grealish, the boy who doesn't know when to stop partying.
Yeah.
In fact, he seems to know only when to start partying.
Yeah.
And
Well, he doesn't seem to realise that when you lose by such a large margin, actually, you shouldn't be partying
He shouldn't
at all.
be partying at all when you lose 4-0 to get battered like that, going to nightclubs in Manchester and Birmingham the same night. And parties that have sparklers mean it is party time.
Yeah.
That's the significance of a sparkler.
Yeah.
It's party time,
Yeah,
OK?
right.
And
It's not just a quiet drink.
there have been those voices in the world who said, oh, he's a young lad, forgive him. Plenty of people saying he's only a young lad,
Yeah.
doing young lads do. Well, the rumours tonight are he's been relegated to training with the under-17s because that's how you said he should have been training.
Well, he should have moved him with the under-5s, actually.
Well,
Put him in
exactly,
kindergarten
exactly.
until he learns his lesson.
How can you
How
be a
about this
professional
one?
footballer and act like that?
How
we
about
ask
this one
ourselves.
from Lord? Well, you are often the voice of reason on these things.
Thank you.
Lord Rallo says, breaking news from Porky, Barca with Messi, Neymar and Suarez are a great club.
Yes.
A week after MG said exactly the same thing.
No. Yes, but I said it when they were all playing together again. You only said it in theory. I saw it in practice tonight, and of course,
What do you mean you saw it in practice?
It backed up everything that
Well,
I've ever said.
My point last week was they were playing brilliantly without Messi. Imagine what it's going to be like when he comes back. Right? Here's one from Jason who says, I feel sorry for Mike Parry as Mike Graham is brainwashing his followers with obeying to your demands.
Yes.
Clear brainwashing technique.
It is a brainwashing technique. You're going to tell us about this so complicated position at the top of Chelsea's table.
No, we're going to do that in a little while because Mark Donaldson's going to come on and talk to
right,
us.
OK,
And
so you can't do it yourself then?
Well, I can do it, but then I'll end up talking to him about it as well. What I want to do now is try and help you, basically.
Help
I know
me?
Today,
I don't need help.
Yeah, you do.
What sort of help do I need?
Well, you need help finding new friends because
I
today...
don't, I've just told you.
Today's the day,
I put no
right?
store on needing friends.
No, but today's the day.
I'm not feeble-minded.
No, but well, some people would say you are.
No.
Today is the day that you help other people with Ask Porky, right? So I thought it was only
Yes.
fair
Yes.
that we reciprocate in some way.
Okay.
And I thought I would help you because do you know this? Here's a statistic for you to
Right.
get your teeth around.
Okay.
More than 2.5 million British men have no friends that they can turn to for help or advice in a crisis, according to a recent study of relationships carried out by the Movember Foundation.
OK, what's Movember?
That's when you grow a moustache for charity.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
You could shave yours off, I suppose, in reverse.
I suppose so, something like
Yeah.
that.
A separate
Does that mean these guys are single, or does it mean they've lost communication with their wife and their
It means they have no
girlfriends?
friends.
Or
No, it means they've got no friends.
yeah, but
like you.
does friend include partner in life?
No, it says friends. It doesn't include partner in life. It means no friends.
Well, I thought people who are married would use their wife as a comfort blanket as well as their friends.
Well, they can do, but sometimes it's nice to actually have a kind of, a male friend that
All right,
you can say things to.
How many male friends have you got?
I wouldn't say I've got more than about 3 or 4.
I don't think you've got 3 or 4.
How do you know?
But you don't want to admit it.
No, I've got about 3 or 4.
Do you know how many good male friends I've got?
None.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I will admit it.
But you haven't got any friends because you're so horrible to people.
No, that's not true.
Yeah,
it's because over the last 15 years, I have been systematically getting rid of my friends because they've become a blinking nuisance.
Yes.
And I just don't have the time to cope with their weaknesses and their frailties and their need for my strength.
Yes.
It's almost like, you know what? It's when I had
I'm
friends,
one of the few people who's put up with you for as long as I've known you, and I'm actually still relatively friends with you.
When I had friends,
isn't that extraordinary?
Right, when I had friends, and me.
When was that?
Well, let me just tell you, me being a winner in life, me being a man who led and did not follow.
Yes.
I was like a.
Well, you've stitched up most of your friends, haven't you?
Hang on, I was like a blood bank to my friends who used me as a blood transfusion service.
Right.
What they used was
blood
my
shot, certainly.
No. What they used was my strength. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So they used to draw the strength out of me in the same way that a desperately ill person.
But you're saying that you were like Samson.
Yeah, a bit like that.
When they sucked you dry, that was the end of it.
Well, that's about it. That's about it, to be honest. I spent so much of my time giving my strength, my goodness, my well-being to helping friends in need, that in the end, a friend in need became a blinking nuisance.
Yes.
And I decided to give it up.
Well,
and not do it. Otherwise, I'd have been trained away to nothing.
This is what these experts say, right? Maybe it's because we work too much, or maybe it's simply a matter of trust. Yep. Men rarely completely trust each other on a social level, right?
Yes.
So you might, like many men, I know you don't do this, but in your younger years, you would have been hanging out with a crowd. You wouldn't have had any specific friends as such. You wouldn't have one particular friend that you trusted beyond anybody else. And so you're not unusual in this case, right? But
So why have you always tried to make out that I am then?
What?
Why have you always tried to make out that I am?
Well, I'm saying you're not unusual getting to this point.
Well, at least I'm honest about it.
Well, yeah, but you don't want friends.
No,
but
I don't.
I'm trying to help you out, right?
Why are you trying to help me out? I don't want help.
You do need help.
In trying to help me out, what are you trying to help?
I'm trying to make you a happier person.
I'm a very happy person.
Look how miserable you are.
I'm very happy
here.
because I've managed to get rid of most of my friends over the last 10 or 15 years.
Well, listen to what Ian says, right? He says, you two sound like a married couple, Mr. Graham doing everything he can to please Mrs. Parry and miserable her indoors.
No.
That's what you sound like.
No, that's rubbish.
No matter what I do, you get upset.
What you've got here is a rock, that's me, and a hard place, which is Mike Graham, OK? I am a rock under which you can shelter. Mike Graham is a hard place to which you do not want to go. Right. Believe me.
OK, now, number one, here's how you can help yourself, right? Involve others in what you're doing.
I don't want to.
You don't do that, right?
I don't want to help.
You do everything on your own, right? You prefer to plough your own furrow. The only thing that you do...
If you plough your own furrow, you don't have to be influenced by those around you who will have undue bearing on your actions.
OK, number two, maintain a positive outlook.
I have a very positive outlook.
You don't have a positive outlook.
I have a very positive outlook.
You do not.
Today is another great day.
Is it?
It's 1.5 hours into today. It's going to be a great day. It's Wednesday.
Very good.
And it's going to be a great day, and I see every day as an opportunity to improve the situation that was yesterday.
All right, well, how about number three? Be kind.
Be kind.
No, you just started the show by being horrible to me again.
Hang on. Why do you think I run a duck conservancy?
Well, you say you do. I've never seen any evidence that you do. I've never seen any note paper that says... Mike Parry, Duck Conservancy.
Why do you think?
Where is it?
Why do you think?
Where's the evidence?
Why do you think I campaigned for Tommy the Chimp? Try and get him out of his concrete
locked
cage.
Up. He could be dead for all you know.
I'm still campaigning for him.
Well, good luck to you.
By the way, have you noticed that? I said I talked to you about the white rhino a few weeks back.
Yeah.
You know that one of them's died.
They're down to 3 now.
There's only 3 left in the world.
I know.
But I mean, to be perfectly honest, the New York Stock Exchange is not going to collapse.
Well, you once said, what difference would it make if there were no more white rhinos?
Well, I'm sorry, I was just about to say that again. The New York Stock Exchange would not collapse if the last 3 white rhinos suddenly decided to get together and died overdosing on eating scrub or whatever they eat.
Now, here's another one you can do, right, which is what you don't do, particularly when we're on the radio together. Pay attention.
I do pay attention.
No, you don't.
I do.
You don't listen to a word I say.
I pay attention.
You're so wrapped up in your own little world.
I pay attention to such an extent that I have to constantly correct you on things that you say.
Right, OK.
For 2 reasons.
Hardly ever.
Either A, they're inaccurate, or B, completely and utterly irrelevant.
Now, number 5 is the one thing you do,
right,
which says look people in the eye. You do look people in the eye.
I look people in the eye.
So you already got that one. That's 1 out of 6.
And what's
the final one?
What's the benefit of doing that?
Well, looking people in the eye means that they will immediately form some kind of bond with you when you talk to them.
Exactly.
So they won't actually think that you're being, in any way dismissive or distracted.
Yes.
And then the final one,
yes.
and I'm going to challenge you to do this before we have to go to the news, because we're going to have to do that in a minute. Say something nice and mean it.
To who?
Me.
Why?
Because I want to see if you can do it.
Why?
I don't think you can.
Why would I want
I
to
don't
do
think
that?
you can do it.
Why would I want to
I
do
don't
that?
think you can say something nice to me and mean it.
Well, I'd feel like an idiot saying that on
You
a
see what I
public
mean?
arena, like a radio station
You
with
can't
millions of
say
people
something
listening.
nice to me and mean it.
Why?
What does that tell you?
Well, what have you done to earn a nice plaudit from me?
It's not a questionnaire. Just say something nice and mean it.
But,
You've got
but
30
there has
seconds.
to be a purpose to everything you do.
You've got 30 seconds.
If you said to me, start reciting a nursery rhyme, I'd say, well, why do you want me to do that? So why would you want me to say this?
I want you to prove that you can say something nice and mean it.
I can when it's appropriate, but I do not see an
You can't do it, can
appropriation
you?
of the moment.
You can't do it.
I do not see an
I rest
appropriation
my
of
case.
the moment.
I rest my case.
No, you're trying to make out that I'm some sort of wicked person.
You are.
Because I won't, glibly utter some ridiculous sentence of kindness to you.
So you're not willing to say anything nice to me?
Why? Why would I want to say something nice to you?
Well, to make up for all the horrible things you've said.
This is a complete mystery to me as to why you need to be told something nice.
It's only, I don't
Are you
need
that
it.
feeble-minded?
No, I don't need it.
And weak?
I just want to know if you can do it.
Yeah, you're begging for it. You're begging for me to say
No,
something
I'm not.
nice to make you feel
I'm
like a
just trying
better
to make-
person.
I'm just trying to make a point.
You seek my approval, don't you?
No.
Because I'm a superior person to you. You're just seeking my approval.
Yeah.
Well, you're not getting it, pal,
Yeah,
okay?
okay.
You've got to earn respect
right.
in life, okay? It's not given to you. You can't demand it. You've got to earn it. And when you've earned a bit of respect, I might say something, nice-ish, just to represent the situation.
Well, as ever, you've run over the time that you're allowed
I've
to
run
say
over
something
anything.
nice, and I'll run over
In
you
fact,
later.
I might get in my car and run over you on the way home as well.
My car's been souped up,
and then I'll say
today.
something nice to you. How's your broken head?
My car has been souped up the last 24 hours, so you better watch
How'd
out.
you soup up a wreck?
Yeah, well, you can tell. I'll tell you how. This is Talk Sport. Coming up, Mark Donaldson from ESPN.
On DAB, digital radio, and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The pressure's on now.
Relieve the itch. Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. I've got loads of tweets to read out to you before
Right.
we get to Mark Donaldson very, very
Yes.
shortly. A lot of people saying that Grealish will be put in the under-21s. Carl says maybe he'll learn to grow up now. He needs to realise he's a role model to younger kids.
Of course.
Matty says, doesn't Porky consider old MG or Mr. Brazil a friend? And then here's one from Mac, who says Porky's friends have either drunk themselves to death, been slagged off on air, and they now hate him. He could do with some new friends.
God, that's really unkind. Some of my friends, unfortunately, have drunk themselves
They have.
to death because
A lot of your friends
that
have.
has happened in
Well,
our
a lot of the
profession.
people that you knew.
That's happened in our profession. And as for me slagging people off on air, I've never done that in my life. Only if
You
it
slagged me off on the air.
well, only if it's justified. I was about to add the caveat, and
Yeah.
it's been justified many times in your case.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have a go at people like that. It's always been my choice to try and keep control of, the what can you say? How do you say this without sounding big-headed?
Yeah, I don't know.
As your life goes on
Yeah.
and you have
When you reach new heights.
a wider reach out into the world,
Yeah.
then you attract more friends. That's obvious. And
Yeah, but that's why you haven't got any then. So you haven't got much of a reach then.
some want to be, thought of as your friends for 20 years or something like that. Some of them you haven't spoken to for 20 years.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is...
Well, how long have you known me?
I'm completely in control. Over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it
Yes.
might be more than that.
Yeah, it could be more than that. I know. We'll keep it at 30 years.
We'll keep it at 30 years.
just for
Long
round
enough,
figures.
anyway.
Absolutely.
Let's talk to Mark Donaldson from ESPN, who
Yes.
I've known for not quite as long as that, but quite a long time, I have to say. And Mark's much, much more pleasant to me than you ever are.
Well, of course he is.
Mark-
He doesn't know you as well as I do.
I beg your pardon. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you both?
Very well indeed. Very
Mark,
well
in
indeed.
very good
I've just,
shape,
I've just
thank
been
you.
trying to get Porky to say something nice about me, but he's
Well, I
failed
don't want to
miserably.
say... Well, I don't want to do that. I think I'm mad.
I do think you're mad, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a separate issue. So, here we go again, Mark. Arsenal and Chelsea leaving it to the last minute. Chelsea with a slightly simpler task, I suppose. All they've got to do is draw against Porto. Jason Cundy said to me it's a very complicated set of circumstances by which they can go through. But I've had a look at it, and it doesn't actually look that complicated. As long as they draw, really, they're
Correct.
through, aren't they?
Yeah, you can make it as complicated as you want with all the permutations. If they draw, they are through.
Yeah.
We are assuming that Dynamo Kiev in their last game in the group, beat Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Yes.
What would happen if they do and Chelsea draw against Porto? All three teams are on 11 points.
Right.
This is when it can get complicated, but basically it does not go to a head-to-head. It goes to a mini-group involving all three teams. And Chelsea have they have a good enough record so that a draw would be good enough. Where it wouldn't have been good enough, had Porto scored late on against Dynamo Kiev yesterday, then Chelsea would have needed to beat Porto on the last game. They don't now. They just need a draw.
It basically comes down to goal difference, to all intents and purposes, doesn't it? Chelsea have got a 0 goal difference. Dynamo Kiev have got +1 and Porto have got -1. So, I mean, if Kiev win and Chelsea and Porto draw, then effectively, Porto get knocked down into the Europa League.
Yeah, and you've got to remember as well, Dynamo Kiev's goal difference will not be taken into account as far as their game against Maccabi Tel Aviv, because it's only the games against each other. No. The only thing that will be taken into account is if they get all 3 points, they would be on 11 points, as would Chelsea and Porto if they draw. I think Chelsea will beat Porto. I watched Porto today. I did a bit of their game. They weren't very good. They've got good players, and you can never say never, but Chelsea should beat Porto at home.
Well, they should, but I mean, we've seen problems for Chelsea at home all season, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, every time we think that they've been on the comeback trail and they get a good result, they struggle. I mean, a lot of people were saying on Twitter last night, they made it look very, very difficult, even though they won 4-0 against a team that really, they shouldn't have a problem with.
No, and the pitch wasn't the best. There was a couple of meaty challenges. Obviously, Maccabi Tel Aviv had a man sent off, Tal Ben Haim, who English supporters will know pretty well. Look, they got the job done. If they didn't get the job done, the three of us right now would be speaking about Chelsea's woes and what's Jose Mourinho going to do next, whatever. That's a very British mentality of kind of looking for the negative and not praising them enough when they get it. Whether it's Chelsea or whoever, we can have a go at Jose Mourinho another day, but I think a 4-0 win away from home in Europe, that is a fine result, no matter who you're playing.
Now then, Mark, I want to say to you, whatever Arsenal are doing, whatever Chelsea are doing, whatever the two Manchester teams doing, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, because if you saw Barcelona last night, then you must agree with me that they are becoming a team that is virtually unbeatable in this competition.
The only team that can beat Barcelona for me are Bayern Munich. Those two are head and shoulders above everybody else in the competition. The best chance for anybody else out with those two teams, in my opinion, to win the Champions League is if Barcelona and Bayern draw each other in the knockout stage.
Well, even if that happens, whoever wins that one is going to emerge as the clear favourites. But it'll be Barcelona. It'll be. I mean, look, I agree with you about Bayern Munich. Of course, I do. They're a very fine team. But now that Messi's back, now that triumvirate of Neymar and Suarez and Messi is in full throttle,
it's not as if you just discovered them.
Hang on. 10 goals in the last 2 games, 6 tonight. Suarez scoring with the most exquisite volley. I mean, that's it was a new side of him. He's not known for his volleying.
Who's not known for his volleying?
Suarez is not known for.
Talking about?
He's not known for his.
He scores goals from anywhere.
No, he's not known for his volleying excellence. But the way he scored at night, he actually leapt off the ground and scored with a volley while both feet were off the ground. It was absolutely superb football. They made mincemeat of the opposition tonight.
He scored goals like that when he played for Liverpool.
Nobody, but that was only in Liverpool. At Liverpool, he was alone in being an exceptional player. At Barcelona, he's not alone in being exceptional. He's got exceptional players around him. I just can't see anybody beating them, Mark.
Well, I think the only team that could have a chance of beating them are Bayern Munich. We saw what Barca did last year when they beat Juventus. However, you go back a couple of years, and I remember Bayern absolutely thumping Barcelona 7-0 on aggregate. Now, it's a slightly different Bayern team. It's a slightly different Barcelona team. I think every other team in the competition need to try and find a way to try and close the gap, because I don't even think it's close. I think it's as close... I think it's as close as everyone else in tennis is to Djokovic on his own. Never mind Federer. I think there's a huge chasm. And it's great to watch. I hope in 20 years' time we have teams as good as this, and we're not thinking back saying, by the way, what about that Barcelona team? Here's one for you, Porky. This Barcelona team against Pep's Barcelona when they were at the prime, who would win?
Probably Pep's team, because they were the best ever in my view. In the final at Wembley when they beat Manchester United, it was the most complete game I think any of us have ever seen on English soil. So I think they probably
two wonderful sides.
Yes.
I mean, and Pep's. It might. The other thing is as well, Porky. It might be Pep's last year, because I'm not saying I'm convinced. I would be surprised if Pep Guardiola is not in the Premier League coaching next season, and he would love to go home or go to England with a victory over his former club before he takes over an English Premier. And I still think he'll end up at Manchester City.
Well,
I think so too.
I'm not going to challenge you on that, except for the fact that our friends in Germany, we do have them, believe it or not, seem to...
I don't have any friends anywhere.
Yeah, no, they seem to think that he's going to sign again a new 3-year deal with Bayern Munich. And
I haven't heard that.
Funny enough, I saw a couple of pictures yesterday of him in a beer cellar somewhere. Don't know if it was
Must have been in Munich.
Yeah, it was in Munich somewhere, and raising a glass and all this kind of stuff, and there's optimism that he will stay. But I agree with you, Mark. I can't see why he would. What is the challenge in repeating in Germany what he's already done? I agree with you. He's got to come to the Premier League.
Yeah, I do the Bundesliga every weekend, Porky, and goodness me, there's no challenge whatsoever.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like Celtic in Scotland, and it's like Paris Saint-Germain.
They've lost a game yet, have they?
Bayern Munich?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they have.
No.
And they're absolutely flat. I mean, they obviously they lost in the Champions League against Arsenal.
No, I mean in the Bundesliga they haven't lost a game.
No. I think that's their only defeat this season.
Yes, it is.
Against. Yeah, I think it is. And look, they're talking about trying to get Pep signed up before Christmas time. But it's not too difficult, if I remember correctly, to go to Gatwick or Heathrow and get a flight to Munich if you want to go to the beer hall.
Sure. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. No, all I'm saying is that...
He's sworn off the sauce for the month. I don't know why. I haven't quite got to the bottom of it yet.
The Germans are pumping it up because obviously they want him to stay. They want, one of the world's top coaches to remain in the Bundesliga. But you have put your finger on it, Mark. The Bundesliga now has become so uncompetitive, bar from the one team, that I don't think any coach will stay there for more than 2 years, because what's the challenge?
Well, he'd have a double challenge for me at Manchester City if he was to go there, because you'd have Chelsea, you'd have Manchester United, Arsenal, maybe Liverpool under Klopp as well. It's more competitive. I don't know what he does on a Friday night, but I can guarantee his work's already done as far as prepping for the game ahead is concerned, and he's probably just sitting with his feet up. Whereas you've got the challenge in the English Premier League, plus imagine getting Manchester City to a Champions League final and then winning it. I think that for me would float his boat more than staying at Bayern Munich, especially if he wins the Champions League with Bayern. Then where does he go from there? The only way is down.
Yeah,
but the toughest job,
agree.
I would have said, for Pep Guardiola or anybody at Bayern Munich is getting the team ready to play as well as they did, say, last night. In that great defeat that they handed out, because basically he's not having to do that week in, week out, is he?
Jawohl.
No. I watched a couple of games last weekend. Bayern played one, and the week before the international break as well. They're steamrolling sides. Steamrolling, there's a new word. Steamrolling sides. I mean, they were 3-0 up against Stuttgart within 20 minutes or so, and it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But what he's doing, it's not a case of just showing up and winning games. He's putting building blocks in place for the future. And if he is to be replaced, Douglas Costa's been the signing of the summer. Kingsley Coman as well. He got on target today or yesterday in the 4-0 victory. So he's putting building blocks in place for the eventual retirement or moving on of Arjen Robben and Frank Ribery. And that's already kind of started, because Ribery is still struggling with an injury, and Robben was forced off during that game yesterday.
Right. Yeah, not before they had a very interesting sort of exchange of handshakes. But listen, Mark, we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed. Mark Donaldson from ESPN there, talking about how good he thinks Bayern Munich are, and how it may be a final between Bayern Munich and Barcelona. But we shall see. Did you see the handshake, by the way? When Thomas Muller scored the goal, which was made by Arjen Robben. Muller was wearing gloves, right? And he ran over to Robben, took his glove off, and shook hands. I thought that was great. I think that's the way forward. Instead of all these ludicrous kind of over-the-top goal celebrations, they're shaking hands like two gentlemen. I think it's a great
takes
way.
you back to, I remember the great Spurs side of 61-62 when I was a mere child.
Well, you must have been old enough to remember it.
Well, I was about 5 years of age, watching it on a black and white telly, and I remember Danny Blanchflower shaking hands with Cliff Jones.
Well, after they scored a goal?
Yeah, after they scored a goal, and that's all it was. And
I like that.
And my dad said, that's what gentlemen do and all this kind of stuff, And then in his later years, my father, mind you, he's been dead quite a long time now, used to get appalled by seeing footballers with long hair kissing each other when they scored goals.
Yeah. Well, we'll be talking about George Best kissing people after he scored goals coming up in the next hour.
Yeah.
Loads more to do, though. Loads more tweets to read out as well. Here's one from Johnny who says, show Porky the Suarez hat-trick against Norwich. And then you'll see him scoring a volley, like the like of which he scored last night. Yes. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics.
When you need all the latest form and odds on all the day's sporting action and you need it fast, you need the Coral Daily Download. Get all the latest news and great offers on all the big games and all the biggest race meetings in one essential package. Delivered to your ears at the speed of sound. Don't miss the Coral Daily Download every morning on the Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast from 6 on Talk Sport with Coral. Your best bet for breakfast.
This unmissable offer on a brand new Mercedes-Benz E-Class might just remind you of the other things in life you really shouldn't miss, like your departure time.
This is the final call.
The first school play. Or your team's winning goal. So don't miss this opportunity to get hold of a Mercedes-Benz E-Class for only £349 a month. Search Mercedes-Benz offers to find out more. Unmissable offers from Mercedes-Benz.
Business users only on an E220 Bluetech SE Saloon 36-month Mercedes-Benz contract hire. £349 per month. Advance payment £1,047. All payments exclude VAT at 20%. Conditions apply. Credit approvals by the 31st of December. 10,000 miles per annum. No ownership option.
Believe it or not, your business could claim a staggering tax deduction of up to 230%. Sound interesting? If you undertake any research and development, you may well qualify for this attractive HMRC-approved relief. The key criteria is being innovative and advancing knowledge in your field of business, whatever that may be.
Don't let your business miss out. Speak to Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business. Visit barnesrofe.com/radio.
Call yourself a bargain hunter? Compared to Beth, you are but last season's shop-soiled clutch bag with 5% off. Because when you're tucked up in bed dreaming of a half-price halter neck, Beth is camped outside her local designer outlet, waiting for the shutters to roll up, living your dream. And while she is, she knows McDonald's are there, with over 600 restaurants open 24 hours. If you're awake, we're awake.
Talk Sport. Radio by dint of sheer force of will and hard work. Talk Sport.
I'm the sun and the air.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. It's Ask Porky tonight, of course. We're going to be talking about George Best coming up in the next hour. You recognise that music?
I don't actually, but I know what it's the Smiths.
It
isn't
is
it?
the Smiths,
and I was never a fan of any of the Smiths. I thought the Smiths was rubbish.
Really?
I thought it was rubbish. I thought Morrissey is just a complete. What's the word I'm looking for?
Self-publicist.
No, a completely deluded and questionable talent. I wouldn't say he's talentless, but a strange sort of talent.
He's very miserable, that's for sure.
Yeah, deluded, questionable of talent, depressive individual who attracts me not one iota to either his singing, his musical ability, or himself as a person.
A lot of people think they're brilliant.
I've seen him on chat shows where he's been, basically either very
quite morose,
dull or very rude or just very strange. But anyway, the reason we're playing now is because a guy called Joe Moss has sadly died, and I read one of his obituaries today.
Who's Joe Moss?
Well, it says he was the first manager of the Smiths who brought Johnny Marr and Morrissey together.
Okay.
Apparently the two great powers in the
Why are you
Smiths.
making such a big thing of it if you didn't think they were any good?
Well, because I know how popular they are.
I
know that they're one of the biggest groups of the 80s, weren't they? And therefore, I put my audience in front of me. Even though it didn't float my boat particularly, I do know that millions of our listeners out there will feel for the Smiths.
So now you're going to give an appreciation of this band you don't like and the manager that you've never heard of?
Well, yeah, I am, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get on with it then.
Yeah, because it says here, Joe Moss helped to launch the career of the most important British pop act of the 80s. Would you say that? The Smiths, the most important British pop act
when
of
you
the
say,
80s.
but you see, when music writers use words like important, it's a bit like, the way estate agents describe property.
Yeah.
It can be important without being the biggest or without being the best
Talking about the 80s, I would have thought...
Influential.
I would have thought, there were more important bands around in the world in the 80s.
The Spice Girls were more important than the Smiths.
I would have said...
In many ways.
I would have said Billy Joel was more important in the 80s. I'd have said that,
but he was in the 70s, really, as well.
No, he wasn't. He was in the 80s, in the mid-80s. Uptown Girl was 1984, 5, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
he
started in the 70s.
Yeah, but he was a big part in the 80s. There were loads of groups around in the 80s more important than the Smiths. But anyway... It says that, yes, he was the catalyst for bringing together Johnny Marr and Morrissey.
Yeah.
Don't know who Johnny Marr is, but anyway.
Well, he was his partner.
He was his partner, yeah. And they wrote songs called The Charming Man and Heaven Knows.
This Charming Man.
Sorry, This Charming Man and Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now.
Yeah.
Which I suppose was a self-penned song by Morrissey, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
Because he is the most miserable man in...
He is.
He prides himself as the most miserable man on the planet,
He does,
doesn't he? And he's a bit sort of, weirdo.
Yeah.
It says Marr and Morrissey, and this is where I really start to object to this obituary, who, like Lennon and McCartney before them, had one of the most turbulent love-hate relationships.
Yeah.
How can you compare Morrissey and some guy who's hardly ever gone anywhere since, this Johnny Marr fella, to Lennon and McCartney,
well, I don't
the greatest singer-songwriters of the 20th century?
I don't think you can.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But, it was certainly for an awful lot of people in the 80s, it was a very definitive kind of sound, wasn't it? It was something that they
well, you're telling me that.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you that because that's the way it is.
Yeah, well...
I was never a massive fan of the Smiths either.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
But that's partly because in the 80s I wasn't here.
Yeah.
When I lived in America during the 80s, and basically the Smiths didn't really travel over there.
No. They apparently met in Manchester, the Manchester group.
They
is
are
that
from
right?
Manchester, yeah, that's
so
right.
a Manchester group, and this guy I'm talking about, Joe Moss, who was their manager, he ran a clothes shop called Crazy Face.
Okay.
Now, I like that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good name. It sounds like something...
there's a shop now called Fat Face.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Was that for people who are big?
No, it's just a sort of trendy kind of skate shop.
Oh, so it doesn't sell oversized clothes?
No. Because I think that would probably be seen as offensive.
Because don't you shop at a men's clothes shop called High and Mighty?
No.
You do, don't you?
No, I don't.
No, you do?
No, I don't.
No, it's for big fat people.
No.
It is?
No, I don't.
No, you do. Oh, you've told me in the past that you do.
I've never told you that.
High and Mighty.
No, I've never told you that. High and Mighty is for very, very tall people.
No, it's not. It's for big fat people.
No, it's
who have
for tall
5X size shirts and jackets.
Yeah, well, I don't have that.
And 48-inch waists.
I don't have that. I wear 17-inch collar shirts.
No.
I wear 44 chest jackets.
Nah.
38 waists.
Nah.
Why don't you tell us what your...
That's
well, no,
rubbish.
I've told you my measurements.
That's
Why don't you tell me yours?
I'm not telling them.
Why not?
Why should I?
Because you shop at Mothercare, don't you? You still get the children's section.
Don't be ridiculous.
You get those ridiculous nurses' shoes.
I'm not having people impersonating my...
Velcro traders.
My bodily...
Well, you start on this absolute rubbish, right, which you made up to try and sort of, seek to ridicule me.
Not at all.
I'm quite happy to be honest about the sizes that I wear.
Yes.
But you are not. What does that tell you?
What do you mean?
Well, why don't you just tell me what size shirt that is?
What I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You don't know what your size is?
I've no idea.
What size waist are your trousers?
I've no idea.
You don't know?
I've no idea.
So how do you buy them then?
Because I just repeat by what I've had before.
What do you mean you repeat by what you've had before?
what I've had before.
But you don't shop online.
It doesn't matter.
So
I don't
which
always
shop do you go to?
I don't always do my own shopping, so
Well,
you know.
So who
does
know what size you are?
Listen, it doesn't matter.
Why are you
it's
so
utterly
secretive
irrelevant.
about it?
We're talking about the Smiths.
Well,
We're
you started it.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I didn't.
You started accusing me of going to High and Mighty.
This guy who sadly died ran a shop called Crazy Face. You said you know a shop called Fat Face.
Yes.
And I said, well, I know a shop called High and Mighty.
Yeah, and you accused me of going there.
Yeah, you do go there.
And I then gave you my measurements.
You do go there.
To I do not.
Do you want to know about this guy or not?
Not really,
Said
no.
all this nonsense,
No.
right? Why don't you want to know about him?
Because you're not really telling me anything at all.
No, here, it says here that this guy, right, in his later years, he managed...
How old was he when he died?
I'm not sure. He was 72, so he's quite old.
He's not that young then.
He's not that old. It says in later years, he managed groups like Marion and Haven. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Neither have I. So, actually, I think he was a bit of a failure, this fella. But anyway, we shouldn't say that because he's died and God rest his soul and all that. But he did find and invent, for anybody who wants to know, Morrissey. What's Morrissey? What's the rest of Morrissey's name, by the way?
I don't know.
I mean, is he, is he
I've
Bill Morrissey?
I've no idea.
Or
it's
is
a bit
he,
like Madonna, isn't it?
Yeah, or is he Morris, Smith or something like that?
Yeah.
Why were they called the Smiths?
Well, I don't know. I assumed you'd have found this out from the obituary.
No, I'd have thought you'd have known these things, to be honest. But anyway.
No, because I was never a big Smiths fan, and like I say, their heyday...
Well, I don't know why we're talking about this, to be honest.
Their heyday was a time when I was not actually in this...
When
I was in this country.
It's of no interest to anybody. There's the bin. I don't know, why'd you get me onto that?
So now you've started, to pay tribute to some guy I'd never heard of, and now you're being terribly disrespectful.
I thought, because you always claim that you know everything about everything in the cultural and pop world, I thought you'd have given me the insight on the Smiths. Why they were called the Smiths, why Morrissey was called Morrissey.
No, because it's not really part of my era.
Why most people think he's a manic depressive.
No.
Why such a miserable git.
No.
Why,
I can't give you any of that information.
What's he doing these days? What does he do? Where is he working? I wanted all this information. You've got nothing.
Well, maybe I'll give you a quiz on the Smiths and you can read up on it.
I don't want a quiz on the Smiths. I know nothing about the Smiths. I thought the music from
the little... start talking about them then?
The little I've heard is just garbage, and I don't know why. I don't know why. Seriously, I have no idea why they ever succeeded as a group, because I thought... Do you know what? I thought their stuff didn't even sound like music. It sounded like a guy who's got very strange, issues to deal with.
They were taking quite a lot of drugs, I think.
With staring eyes, talking while somebody's playing music.
He did write a song called "Something Is Squeezing My Skull."
Oh, is he?
Yeah, in his solo years.
Right, okay.
I think that had something to do with what he was taking. Carl says the Smiths are like Marmite. You either really love them or you can't bloody stand them. So I think you'll be in the latter category.
Don't phone your mother. Phone Talk Sports.
Football on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Atletico Radio.
Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport, and we are the two mics, of course. We've got podcasts coming out a little bit later on. Here's somebody who's got some sympathy for you here.
Oh, yeah, good.
Now, you're always telling me I never read any of these out, but I do read them out when they do come in. This is from Jack in Stockport, who's texted into 81089. He says, it's now bordering on bullying. Leave Parry alone. Exactly. MG the bully. Parry doesn't want to say anything nice to you. You are the idiot, MG.
Yeah, you are.
Harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, but I think it's a very, very accurate one. Now, I've got a few here, actually, because I saved these up. Let me have a look here.
Yeah.
And I can find them on my information
Well, what are you
device.
looking for? A couple of people saying Bayern have lost to Eintracht Frankfurt this season. Yeah, but they lost in the Cup. They have not lost in the Bundesliga.
Exactly.
I don't know why people doubt what I say.
Right, here we go. This is great. Dom says Morrissey's real name is Stephen Patrick Morrissey.
No.
Now, you see, I object to people who start out in life when they're not famous, calling themselves by their surname only.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, who are you? Oh, I'm Morrissey.
Yeah.
That's always so arrogant, you know what I mean? Do you remember a colleague we used to work with at the Daily Express called John Downing?
Yes.
And John was an award-winning photographer.
He's still a working photographer, I think, isn't he?
Is he?
I presume so, yeah.
Well, he
very good photographer.
He left the Daily Express in circumstances which some thought were poor.
Yeah.
That is, he exited the building. After a couple of drinks, a black cab was called, and he was bundling the black cab with a couple of plastic bags with his stuff from the dark room or whatever it was in those days, and he was off. And it seemed ignominious for a man of his
ignominious.
Yes, that's right. For a man of his talent and his ability, he'd won loads and loads of awards, but. There is a reported story that one day John was found in the darkroom. We had darkrooms in those days.
Yeah.
Where when a photographer took a picture and the picture had been developed, then they put a block on the back, which was the name of the photographer who'd taken it.
Yeah.
And it is alleged that John was found in there.
Yeah.
With a file, trying to get rid of the word John off his block.
Oh, yeah.
So it would just come out Downing.
Yeah.
But then he would join the legion of photographers like Litchfield and, Bailey. That's right, Litchfield, Bailey, Downing.
Well, I mean, to some extent, there's I mean, if you're in that kind of business, I mean, I suppose there is some kind of mystery.
Yes.
A mystique if you have just one name.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah. But, I mean, of course, that might be an apocryphal tale. If it is John, I'm very sorry, but I did say it was alleged.
I think you're right. I seem to remember that in those days when you would get the actual prints coming up, they would have Downing on them.
That's right,
and not necessarily John Downing.
No, exactly. Now, so can you imagine me just being called Parry?
Well, you're called Porky.
Well, yes, but I mean,
that's different.
That's a nickname, isn't it? I mean, what would we call you? Graham? But you see, then people would think that was your first name anyway, wouldn't
I know,
they? So there wouldn't be much point in that, would there?
They wouldn't, no. And also, I mean, it was one of the things that I suppose they had to take getting used to at school when I was at secondary school, and they would only call you by your last name. They would just say Graham. They wouldn't like Michael Graham.
Oh, well, no, at my school, because I went to a direct grammar school where we had firm discipline.
Yeah.
And
it didn't work on you, did it?
It was Parry of the lower six, or Parry of the upper six, or that sort of thing. Now,
were you the only one there? They didn't have to distinguish you between one Parry and another.
No, I was the only Parry.
Right.
But you see, take our very good pal Alan Brazil.
Yes.
His surname actually is so attractive as a colourful surname. Yeah. That's all you want to call him, Brazil.
But
where
he's not
are
really
you?
known as that, though, is he? He's known as Al, isn't he?
He's known as Al, yeah, really, yeah. Well, I think in football terms he's known as Brazil or Bazza.
Really?
Yeah.
Bazza?
Yeah.
Was he known as Bazza? I've never heard that.
I was in the car with him one day.
Yeah.
We were in Suffolk, and we were travelling across, some beautiful landscape. I remember it was New Year's Day, actually, and then, it was lovely frosty landscape. We were off to some local hostelry somewhere.
Yeah,
and
doesn't surprise me.
And the phone rang, and it was, speakerphone, and I'll press the button, and it was, "Is that you, Bazza?" And it was Kenny Dalglish.
All right.
Yeah, because they played in the same Scotland team together in the World Cup in 1982.
So they did call him Bazza.
So, yeah,
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I know.
Is that in your
Bazza.
book?
No, it's not in my book.
Why isn't that in your book?
Well, I don't know. It didn't have much relevance, really. We didn't, we didn't get lost on the journey over to the hospital or anything like that.
Right.
So
here's one from Rob in Peterborough. He says, Porky so rarely says anything nice about anyone that you have to wonder how he sleeps at night. Oh, I just remembered, he doesn't sleep at night.
Oh.
This is quite good.
Now, there's one here from Woodenhead. He often has quite poison sort of
I wouldn't say poison, no.
And he says, well, I mean, you will now. He says, old MG shops at... oh, no, it's against me, this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you better read it out, then.
Old MG shops at High and Mighty, but old Porky shops at Short and Flabby. That's
very good.
Harsh.
VHP says, so we finally get to know how old Mike Parry is. Ha ha, he's 59 years old. Make sure you tell him. Hashtag plank.
A bit harsh. Right, here we go. Here, Porky. Just hit the nail on the head. Regards, Morrissey. Shame he doesn't put the nail in Morrissey's head. Ooh, that's a violent intent. We don't agree with violent intent on this show.
No.
We like people.
And here's one from Chris, right, who calls himself a parody of himself. He says, Stephen Patrick Morrissey lives in LA, loves life, wrote a great biography, credited with inventing indie music. Well, he didn't invent indie music, Chris. I don't know why you would say that.
What is indie music, by the way?
Well, independent sort of record label type music. Independent records were invented a very long time before that. In fact, it was pretty much invented by Rough Trade back in the late 70s.
Meaning?
Well, in the old days, right, you had the big conglomerates.
What do independent records sound like?
Well, they tend to be less corporate, right? So they would encourage smaller bands to have less money and just make a record and put it out there.
What, you mean?
When
a bit
for
like
example,
our DVD?
A bit like our DVD.
Yeah.
A bit like, when the punk movement started.
Yes.
And all the big record companies tried to get their hands on the Sex
I
Pistols
see,
and various other bands. And Rough Trade started up, and I told you about my early associations with them.
Yes, you did,
And basically, that was the start of independent record making, where people said, look, we don't want to be signed to CBS.
Très intéressant.
We don't want to be signed to EMI. In fact, the Sex Pistols did a song called EMI, you might remember.
Right.
We don't want to be
signed.
Yeah, well, we don't want to be signed to some massive conglomerate who are going to tell us that we have to, dress up to do a video. We want to just do our own thing. That's what indie records is.
See, John Lennon rebelled with the Beatles and that, said, I'm not wearing the suit anymore, okay?
Yeah,
he did. He said,
well, also, they started their own record label.
Yeah, of course they did, yeah.
Right. Here's one from Marco, though, who's less impressed. Right. He says, impossible to know where to begin correcting your Festival of Smiths ignorance. Are you chaps really journalists?
Yes, of course we are.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, we don't specialise in the Smiths.
No, we don't, actually. Listen, talking about the DVD, the Two Mics Live DVD, I'm afraid it's sold out. The last 60...
What do you mean it's sold out?
Well, the last 60 available...
We've only just started selling them.
I know. The last 60 available DVDs...
Well, you're going to get some more done.
The pressing plant, which is in Holland... is
this lot's not going to get what is held up at Calais.
No. The pressing plant, which is in Holland, is literally... pressing overnight tonight.
Oh, good.
And when I say pressing, I don't mean the football term. Pressing, that's the new in-word in football.
Is it?
I mean that we are...
Pressing high up the pitch.
Oh, yeah, pressing high up the pitch. They are pressing thousands of copies tonight, literally, which are being shipped over to England and will be available then on Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So could I say to anybody, please...
Well, tomorrow, in other words.
Tomorrow, that's right.
Thursday.
Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday, yeah. Of course, it's the early hours of Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah. Is it?
All I want to say was, I'm sorry if you've ordered one. Of course you'll get it. It might just be one day late. We ran out.
Well, it won't be late. Don't tell them it's going to be late.
Well, it won't be late, but I mean... All I'm trying to say is...
What are you trying to say?
Is that supply... Excuse me, has outstripped... No, it hasn't. No, demand has outstripped supply, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, thanks for making that announcement.
No, demand has outstripped
anyway,
supply.
The point is, if you want to get one, just go to the twomics.co.uk and basically continue to order as normal.
Yes, you will, and you get one
I don't know why
within
I have
days.
to raise this as a big issue.
No, because I want to keep the listeners, our millions of listeners, informed about what's going on, that's all. Right, now there's one here, and again, this is the image you've painted of me, see, which bounces back at me all the time.
Why?
Dylan says... What is Porky doing for Christmas Day? He's like Scrooge, isn't he? Well, I mean, you've given them this image. I'm going to be sitting there in the cold on Christmas Day, warming my hands over a few bits of wood that I've set fire to in the fireplace.
Yeah.
Without
and just generally sort of grimacing.
Yeah, without any friends, without any contact with the rest of the world. No, I'll be in the bosom of my family.
Although you and I might be working on early as a Christmas Day.
Yes, we could be. Although, I'm not sure I want to work till 4 o'clock on Christmas Day.
Why not?
It's a bit late, isn't it?
Well, it's early for me. I'll be leaving it for us at 6.
Yeah, but it is Christmas Day. You've got to go down and see your two charming children.
Yeah,
and,
I know, but they won't be up at 4.
Help them open the presents.
I can be there by 6 o'clock.
Okay. Right, here we go.
Santa will have been by then.
What?
Santa will have been by then.
It says Bayern also lost to Wolfsburg in the Super Cup this season.
Yeah, I said that. They haven't lost in the Bundesliga. I don't know what's wrong with these people. Yeah, they've drawn, but they haven't lost. I just said they haven't been beaten.
Yes, okay.
Now
then...
What about this one from Francis? I've recently seen Porky shopping in Beaumont's.
In Beaumont's?
What's that?
Where's that? I don't know. Where is Beaumont?
I've no idea.
Where is Beaumont's? What do they sell? Please let me know. I'd like to be in on that act.
Charles says Porky is neither high nor mighty.
Well, I certainly don't shop at shops which have shirts which are 5XXXXXX.
I told you I buy shirts at 17 round the collar. You won't tell me what your colour size is.
Expect me to believe that?
You won't tell me what your colour size is.
I don't know what it is. Right.
I find that astonishing.
Now, here's an inquiry.
Do you know what shoe size you are?
Yes.
What size are your shoes?
Between 8 and 10.
Between 8 and 10?
Yes.
What, you mean 9?
No. Sometimes 9.5, sometimes 10, but occasionally 9. Seriously. There used to be 8 all the time.
So they've got bigger?
Yeah, they've got bigger, yeah. Now, there's one here which is very informative. It comes from Nico, and he says, Hi, guys. Hi, guys, can you help? I'm in Argentina. Can I get your DVD over here in South America?
Yes, you
Different
can.
currency and stuff. How do they get it, Mike?
Yeah, well, they just go to 2mics.co.uk.
Right.
You pay for it with a credit card, so it doesn't matter what the currency is.
Right.
And you put your address in. And
Excellent.
it will be dispatched to you no matter where you are in the world.
That's excellent.
It
Good.
is. Now, coming up very shortly, we're going to talk to Ken Adam, former agent and friend of George Best. It's 10 years since he passed away at the age of just 59.
It's terrible.
And we'll have lots of remembrances and stories about George Best. So if anybody's got any, by all means, you can send them in. You can text them to 81089, email them via the website, talksport.com, and you can tweet them to us at the 2 Mics.
Yes.
Loads more coming up on TalkSport.
Make sure you're ahead of the game and listen to Kick-Off on TalkSport with 888 Sport. Bet you can. Tonight from 7, get in-depth analysis, heavyweight pundit opinion, and outspoken fan reaction on the nation's most passionate pre-match football forum.
You won't miss a trick, flick, or kick of any of the action.
Plus, hear the latest form and odds ahead of all the matches that matter from 888 Sports On The Ball Bet Spurt. Kick-Off, weeknights from 7 on TalkSport with 888 Sport. Bet you can.
This is Private Neil Patel getting out of a helicopter on an overseas training exercise. He's also doing an IT apprenticeship. This is Private Julia Dean on a live firing exercise. She's also completing an apprenticeship in engineering. With an army apprenticeship, you get paid to be a soldier while learning practical skills. The Army is the largest provider of apprenticeships in the UK. With thousands of jobs available now, there's more than one way to be the best. Apply now. Search Army Jobs.
Pneumonia strikes up to 1 in 100 of us every year. Don't let it be you. Vaccination can help protect you from the most common type of pneumonia. Speak to your pharmacist, doctor or nurse about pneumococcal pneumonia vaccination today, or search Pneumonia Strikes. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Need meat? Got dry cleaning? Get it all at Clean Cuts, dry cleaners and butchers.
What? In business, being focused pays. Same goes for your bank. Allied Irish Bank GB is single-minded. We specialise in offering owner-managed businesses all the banking they need. So, for a bank as focused as you, visit aibgb.co.uk. Allied Irish Bank GB, the single-minded business bank. Allied Irish Bank GB is a trademark used under licence by AIB Group UK plc, a wholly owned subsidiary of Allied Irish Banks plc.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
A terrific performance.
Turn of pace and eye for goal.
Shout about it.
Talk Sport.
I will not cease from mental fight, nor shall my soul sleep in my hand, till we have entered Jerusalem.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Why are we playing Jerusalem?
Well, I'll tell you why we're playing Jerusalem.
Not that I recognise that particular version.
No, it's a fantastic story. Do you know, I've always wondered why we take Jerusalem on as a national anthem in this country.
Why?
Yeah, you know, I've never worked it out. It's William Blake's song, isn't it?
Well, because it's not really about Jerusalem, is it? I mean, it's called Jerusalem.
This is the point. This is the point.
But it says, we will build Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land.
Yeah, I know. But why do you want to build a foreign city in England's green and pleasant land?
Well, it's not about being a foreign city.
No, do you know what it was all
He's
about?
Not saying let's build Paris or let's build Lisbon or let's build Hong Kong.
Yeah.
He's talking about let's build Jerusalem. The idea of Jerusalem, which is the fact that it was, the place where all things holy
just
came
like,
from.
Just like the guy who stepped on the moon first, Neil Armstrong, made the wrong quote by leaving out the word A. Because he said, one small step for man, one giant step for mankind.
Giant leap for mankind.
One giant leap for mankind. He should have said one small step for a man, i.e. him, because one small step for man is the same as mankind, unless you say a man.
Well, no, he was talking about... Well, yeah, but man and mankind has a sort of, pleasant alliteration to it.
Honestly.
If he said one...
He should have said a man, literally.
No, I don't agree.
No, he should have done.
I don't agree.
Every scholar in the world agree. Neil Armstrong agreed.
Well,
Neil Armstrong said, I got the quote
Neil
wrong.
Armstrong's a very rude man.
Yeah, I know he is.
Told you.
I know he told you to
F off. Told me to F off,
yeah, well, I mean, I'd blame him for that. Anyway, we'll get back to that in a minute. The thing is that
He wasn't thinking about mankind then.
Jerusalem was written by the legend that inspired William Blake's poem Jerusalem, right? Was completely based on falsehoods done by a bunch of con men posing as... No.
Is this the story about the Glastonbury
rip-off? Yeah, these guys...
Glastonbury what?
Glastonbury Thor. What are you laughing at? You never been to Glastonbury Thor?
Glastonbury Tor.
Yeah, it's on the top of a hill.
Yeah, it's Glastonbury Tor.
And it's an old wreck of a church.
Well, no, but Glastonbury's not Glastonbury Thor.
It's Thor.
Thor's the Norse god.
I've been there. Anyway, listen, what I'm saying
I've
is...
been there.
What I'm saying is
Have you
these
been
monks...
to the pub, the Jerusalem?
No, I haven't. I've been to the Old Trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham. That's the oldest pub in Britain, the Old Trip to Jerusalem. Anyway, the point is... These monks, the priests and the monks in the church held incredible power when this all happened in 1180, whatever it was, you know. And they were the landowners, they were the powerful local people, they commanded what working class people did and all that kind of stuff. So what they did is they decided they wanted a new church. So they went around telling everybody, like all these pilgrims walking around all over Britain trying to find churches and all that they should come to Glastonbury because Jesus Christ had been there.
Walk in Jesus' footsteps.
Yeah, walk in Jesus' footsteps. And this happened in 1184. What had happened was their abbey burnt down, okay? Because somebody knocked a candle over when they were bladderated on the mead, right? So they thought, how are we going to rebuild this? So what they did is they said that not only had Jesus come to Glastonbury, like many hundreds of years before, but that actually they'd found the grave of King Arthur and his beautiful bride Guinevere.
Oh, yeah.
They introduced Jesus into the equation by saying he was brought there as a boy by his uncle Joseph of Arimathea.
Joseph of Arimathea, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And the famous thorn bush that supposedly blooms every Christmas day, right?
He waved his staff against a thorn bush and it turned into a tree that still flowers on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Now,
I just said that.
This was all complete gobbledygook, right? It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
What they wanted to do was get these pilgrims to come and tip a load of money into the collecting pot, and so they dug a hole.
So basically what you're saying is that, the church, once again, was basically having a sort of fundraising effort, and they came up with a few stories that would help them collect some money.
Complete comment. A guy called Professor Gilchrist has done a recent survey on it, okay? He's Professor of Archaeology at Reading University. Yeah. He's examined all the archaeological excavations, and he says, basically, what they called was King Alfred's grave.
Yeah.
He said it's a rubble-filled pit, and he said there's nothing more than a hole in the ground.
Right.
The monks needed to raise money by increasing the numbers of visiting pilgrims and keeping the myths and legends alive.
But what about the ley lines, though?
Well, the ley lines went through Glastonbury and all that. But
are you saying they don't exist either?
Well,
Hang on, you're the one that told me yesterday you believe in the afterlife. Do you not believe in the ley lines?
No, the monks made up the ley lines.
Well, the power of the ley lines, because they all go through Avebury, where the Avebury stone circles
are. They're not supposed to go through Stonehenge and Avebury and everywhere else.
They do.
But it's all a load of gobbledygook. And
so you don't think there's any special kind of powers that go through these particular parts of ancient Britain?
No, definitely not. It's all gobbledygook, honestly.
Right. Well, why do you not think that afterlife is gobbledygook?
Oh, because there's evidence that things can happen.
Evidence like what?
Well, evidence like, the expert we talked to last night from America.
Well, what evidence does she have?
Well, what was her name?
I can't remember.
She was good. Let me just finish this
She
story.
didn't have any evidence.
Let me just finish this story.
Yeah, go on.
Now, Professor Gilchrist found out that not only was there never a grave of King Arthur, not only did Joseph of Arimathea and his young nephew Jesus ever come to this country, that is a complete load of gobbledygook, because they wouldn't have been able to get a ship to come that far in those days and all this kind of stuff, right? But in fact, what these monks did, these monks were such con men. I mean, they're supposed to be men of God, and they're a bunch of con men cheating these pilgrims out of money. And what they did was they...
Well, you should be appalled by this. You're the guy that claims to be a big Christian.
I'm appalled. What they did was they said, look, our church is so dilapidated and about to fall down.
Dilapidated?
Dilapidated. We need money to rebuild it.
Yeah.
But when they got the first load of money, they built a church but made it look very dilapidated.
Yeah.
They built it to fall down.
Yeah. Must use a local Somerset builder.
Exactly. So that when all the following pilgrims came along, they said, look at this rubbish church we've got, you know.
Right.
And they said, we thought you'd built a new one.
Money.
They thought, no, we haven't got any money to build a new one. They said, we heard you had. Well, fortunately, they didn't have Sky News in those days, so nobody would have seen the new church being built like an old church, you know what I mean? So they just said, no, it was liars and thieves and vagabonds who told you that story. Give us all your money. The monks
Shocking story, isn't it?
The monks deliberately designed the rebuilt church to look older to demonstrate its ancient heritage. This swelled pilgrim numbers and the abbey's coffers. It was a strategy that paid off. Glastonbury Abbey became the second richest monastery in England by the end of the Middle Ages.
There you are.
I mean, good God, these monks, they were terribly dishonest people.
I don't know why you're in any way shocked by this.
I am shocked, I'm telling you.
Really?
Yeah, the feet in the hymn were supposed to be those of Jesus, who, legend says, visited Britain as a boy with his uncle, Joseph of Arimathea. Joseph. Brought here by the Phoenician tin traders.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Phoenician tin traders were in on the deal.
There was significant sea trade in those days. People did travel around the world. It wasn't like, nobody went anywhere.
I'll tell you how ridiculous the story got. You've seen the Monty Python film, The Holy Grail. It says here, according to another and equally unprovable legend, which was probably a myth put out by the monks, Joseph returned to Britain with the Holy Grail. Excuse me, after Jesus' death.
Right.
It is then that he is supposed to have stuck his staff in the ground and it burst into life as the Glastonbury thorn. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Not
the Glastonbury thorn.
The original thorn tree was destroyed during the Civil War as an object of superstition, but two offshoots were said to have survived, and they both flowered at midsummer and midwinter in 1951.
Yeah.
1951.
And it's still there in Glastonbury. There is that thorn there. You're supposed to be able to see it flower.
Every December, a sprig from the tree is sent to the Queen for her breakfast table. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's amazing,
the thorn is still there. And the thorn does still flower, so they can't be been complete cobblers.
Yeah, but it wasn't originally Joseph of Arimathea's staff, was it?
No, but nobody can explain why that happens.
What a load of old gobbledygook!
Nobody can explain why that happens.
See the way that religion.
Your view of gobbledygook.
See the way that religion
is very
seizes people's minds.
Well, I've been telling you that for weeks.
Religion seizes people's minds. But what I really like is that the Phoenician tin traders were in on the act.
Yeah,
there must have been a bunch of con men as well.
Well, very possibly. I mean, they were tin traders.
They claimed they brought Jesus to this country, and that's why did those precious feet walk in England's pastures green. No, they didn't. I've just proven it.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I feel much better now. How about this from Horatio, right? Before we talk about George
Best.
Great name. He says this: the Smiths were generally considered to be far more influential than the Stones and the Beatles. Morrissey is seen as God.
Now, what a load of gobbledygook.
That's a load of cobblers as well.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Talk Sport on DAB, digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can. Talk Sport.
Georgie, they call you the Belfast boy. Georgie, they call you the Belfast joy. They say, Georgie, keep your feet on the ground. Georgie, when you...
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. It's Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on in the show as well. Right now, though, Mr. Parry, we're going to talk to Ken Adam, who's a former agent and friend of George Best. He lives in Manhattan Beach in California. He worked with George over in the States when he went to America to start playing for the Los Angeles Aztecs in the late 70s. Let's talk to Ken now and see if we can get some stories from him about, because it's 10 years to the day since George Best passed away at the age of just 59.
Yes.
Ken, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's good evening here. But I've just been listening to you two. I can't believe you're this lively at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock, whatever it is.
Well, we live on a 24-hour clock, basically, now, don't we?
Yeah, it's called the Red Bull syndrome.
I was going to say, you must drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's what he does. I just sleep a lot during the day. Now, Ken, I mean, I was reading, we're both old enough to remember watching George Best play, luckily enough, but we were thinking a lot of people probably, apart from just watching him in some old sort of grainy films, couldn't really quite capture what a brilliant footballer he was, and the awards that he won, the goals that he scored, and how young he was when he did it all.
Absolutely right. I mean, the kids today know obviously Messi and Ronaldo and all that. I think George, if you think about the way or the conditions that he used to have to play in, where defenders could knock lumps out of his legs, he played on heavy pitches full of mud, and the ball weighed a ton, and he could still perform the way he did. I think it's quite incredible. When he finished playing, his right knee was almost at a right angle after it had been annihilated so many times.
Right. Tell us about how you kind of got together, because I'm told you were the first full-time player agent in England. Was that before you knew him and before you sort of formed a partnership, as it were?
Yeah, I really started about 1969 with Peter Shilton, Alan Hudson, and Mike Shannon.
Right.
And I was the editor of a football magazine, and basically that's how it started. And then.
So how did you end up? How did you end up out in California?
Well, it's a long story.
Well, we got some time.
Okay, so a good friend of mine in England, I used to play football with, Terry O'Neill, the photographer.
Yep.
And he was doing all Elton John's album covers.
Right.
And Elton John was playing 2 big gigs in LA, in Dodger Stadium. And he wanted to get involved in football over here, and I knew the owner of the Aztecs. And so I arranged for Elton to give 15% of the Aztecs, in return for a promotion.
Right.
Well, part of his long-term plan was to sign Rodney Marsh as well, and I was Rodney's agent. He got to Man City, and that didn't have a very happy ending. And he was, deciding what to do. So we had this invitation to go to LA, and we went to the concert and all the rest of it. And then we're in the hotel getting ready to go home back to England, and get a phone call from the guy called Bo Rogers, who was the general manager of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And he said, would you like to come to Tampa before you do anything? And I said, where's Tampa? Because I didn't have a clue.
Right.
So anyway, we stopped there. Rodney signed for Tampa. He fell in love with the place immediately. And George was obviously in LA. So fast forward a year to 1976, and Alex Stott called me up one day and said, any chance of getting Rodney on loan? So I said, I'll try and work it out, because I was on good terms with the Rowdies. And only Clay said, well, what about George Best? And so I said, well, I know the owner of the Aztecs, a guy called John Chaffetz. And so I called him. I called Rodney first and got that lined up with the Rowdies. And I said, we're going to try and get George as well, which he was well pleased about. So I went to LA, got George. He told me what he wanted.
Yeah.
And what did he want in those days?
He wanted £500 a week.
Right.
Which was a lot of money in 1976. He wanted a brand new car, and he got a Jaguar XJ6. And he got a flat in Putney.
In Putney in London, which I think he lived in for many years. Ken, I mean, people say, George Best wasted his career and all that kind of stuff. They're mad, because by the time he left England, he'd won 2 league championships, he'd won the European Cup, he'd played in...
He'd won the Ballon d'Or.
Exactly. He'd played in all the biggest stadiums in Europe. He'd become El Beatle over in Europe. He didn't waste his career. He took it on in America, but... he was relentlessly exploited throughout his career, and even now in his death, he's still being relentlessly exploited, isn't he?
Well, I don't know about that, because I don't see what goes on in Britain so much now. I've been over here since I actually moved over in 78 full time.
Yeah. Well, let me.
I can only imagine. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you, there was a programme on the other night to celebrate the 10th, commemorate the 10th anniversary of the death of George Best. And this guy comes on, and they called this programme The Autopsy on George Best. And they quite literally went through this programme for 45 minutes trying to find out why George Best died and what killed him. I mean, it's a bit like asking how John F. Kennedy died, isn't it? You know, it's so ridiculous.
Well,
we all know exactly what happened to George Best at the end of the day. But this programme was made exploitively on George Best's name to try and, you know, create a mystery that, you know, it wasn't really an excessive drink that killed George Best. It wasn't really the fact that he suffered from alcoholism. It was something else, you know. What was it? What was the mystery? And it's all rubbish. To this day, George Best's name in this country, Ken, here in Great Britain, still makes people's spines tingle. Does he have the same effect over there?
Well, not so much over here. Let's just go back to your point before about, you know, people saying he wasted his career. Basically, George did things on his terms, and if he got something in his mind, he was going to do it. So, you know, the fact that he left England when he was 25 or whatever it was, that was his decision. He could be easily swayed in some respects, but he could be very hard-headed in others, and that was one situation where he just wanted to do what he wanted to do, as it were.
Yeah. And do you think that when he wanted to come out to LA and maybe start a new life, it was partly to get away from the craziness of playing football in England because it wasn't going to be that mad over there?
He loved being in Hermosa Beach, and which is right next door to Manhattan, where I am. So it's a small beach town. It's only 16,000 people, and he could go to the beach, he could go in the bar, he could go out and have dinner, and you know, the odd fan. There was quite a lot of Aztec fans from the South Bay area, which we're in, which is south of LA Airport.
Yeah.
But he was never pestered. He was, you know, he lived life on his terms, and he wasn't.
You guys opened a bar there, didn't you?
Yeah, we bought an old rundown beer and wine bar and got a liquor license and changed the name from Hard Times Tavern to Besties.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it became quite a destination. People would get off the plane at LAX, at the Los Angeles airport, and go straight to the bar.
Take us to Besties.
English newspapers, that was our only source of information at the time.
Sure. He also met his first wife there, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, that's right. And as a result of which we have Callum Best, to this day. So he did establish himself in that part of the world, and he'd love it. And actually, a colleague of ours, Alan Brazil, who does the breakfast show on this station, played against George when Alan was a 17-year-old on Ipswich's books and was sent over to America for a season to to toughen him up for
to play with the Aztecs, you mean?
No, he didn't. He played against the Aztecs.
All right.
Al played for Motor City, Detroit.
Detroit,
yeah. But very interesting.
Detroit, okay. Trevor Francis was at Detroit.
Yes, that's right. He was. He was at Detroit.
Very well over it.
He was at Detroit with him. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Indeed.
And when you were, we haven't got a lot of time, Ken, but we'll just ask you one more question. I mean, when you were doing all this stuff with George, I mean, were you aware that he was in some way, in terms of the amount that he was drinking, were you aware that that was doing him more damage than it was? I mean, we talked to Rodney Marsh quite a bit, and he tells us quite a few stories as well.
Yeah.
I mean, did it seem that George was different in the way that he was drinking back then, or was it just everyone was doing it?
Well, bear in mind that we don't. In those days, we didn't have the information that we have now about alcoholism.
Yeah.
But clearly, and it's no secret that he would like a drink. I mean, some days he would go without anything at all, but when he went on a bender, he was, that was his thing.
Yeah, sure.
And because you've probably seen this before with famous people. That's just George, or that's just whoever it might be. And so they get a bit more latitude than most other people.
Yeah, and people will.
The other thing,
he was.
Yeah, the other thing that happens, Ken, is that I live very close to where George spent the last years of his life in Surrey, in England, OK, where he was married and lived with his second wife, Alex, until they got divorced. Now, I've been in pubs where George Best would sit in the corner, literally, with the paper, and he'd be drinking mineral water. Literally, he decided he didn't want a day. But within 2 hours of being in that pub, there'd be 12 drinks on his table because everybody wanted to go home and say, I bought George Best a drink today. Even if George didn't want them, they used to pile up on the table.
You know, one of the things that I thought of, you know, when I knew you were going to be doing this, is just to talk a little bit about his character. He's actually quite shy in a lot of situations.
Yes, he was.
And you just alluded to that, sitting in the corner of a pub. But he was a very gentle man. He was he's very self-deprecating. He was very respectful.
He was very nice.
Very polite. My mum absolutely loved him because he was a very polite guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was just you know, like with Bobby Moore as well. Everyone that knew Bobby, everyone that knew George would say he's a great lad. You very rarely hear anyone say a bad word about either of those two.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was a fantastic guy, a fantastic footballer.
He
Ken,
was, yeah.
I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I'm
Yes,
sorry
thank
so
you very
short.
much indeed.
Maybe we can get you on again and talk some more.
Indeed.
Oh, you've got the number. Give me a call anytime.
We will do. Thank you very much
Thanks
indeed.
very much indeed. Ken Adam there, who worked with George Best, owned a bar with George Best, and was largely responsible for, presumably, for taking him over to California.
Promoting his
to
football
play
career
football.
over there.
Got a couple of good texts that have come in on the George Best front, which we shall read shortly as well. And then coming up, I'm going to get you even more worked up about the Cycle Suka Highway as well, because I've got some updated information for you. This is TalkSport.
Colin Murray, weekday mornings from 10 on TalkSport with Wicks. Every weekday morning, get opinionated comment.
So excited, only 3 Leeds United managers until Christmas.
Exclusive interviews.
Jimmy Carragher.
Well, I had him by the throat, never mind shouting at him.
And unmissable debate.
You've backed yourself into a wall now, Cole, if you don't mind me saying so.
From the biggest names in sports broadcasting every day.
As always, you take this show on to a new level.
There ain't no listeners like the TalkSport listeners.
Colin Murray, weekday mornings from 10 on TalkSport with Wicks. Let's do it right.
And now for a live business opportunity. A food and drink distributor in Turkey wants to source UK-made breakfast cereals and drinks. If you want to give your business a boost, then this is for you. The demand is out there. You could be too. To find your opportunity, visit exportingisgreat.gov.uk.
The Russians got our spy pilot, and we've got their spy. We want you to negotiate the swap.
Don't miss Bridge of Spies. The film critics are calling magnificent. 5 stars.
Why aren't we hanging him?
Every person matters. Richly entertaining.
Do you know how people will look at us? The family of a man trying to free a traitor?
You're doing this for us. Spielberg's craftsmanship is breathtaking.
The next mistake our governments make could be the last one.
Tom Hanks.
Let's be clear, nobody is safe.
Bridge of Spies in cinemas Thursday.
We took the all-new Mitsubishi L200 Series 5 across the globe for 18 days and 4,267 miles. We conquered the Sahara Desert and the Atlas Mountains to show the world the most manoeuvrable, economic, efficient, safest and capable pickup we've ever made. The Mitsubishi L200 Series 5, showing the world how it's done. Search Mitsubishi L200 and test the best.
The big red building on Golders Green Road.
The big pre-Christmas sale is now on at the Big Red Building in Golders Green Road. Beautifully tailored men's suits from only $79.95. Plus big reductions on dinner suits, cashmere and wool overcoats, jackets and trousers. At Gold's Factory Outlet, 110 to 114 Golders Green Road. Open all week Sunday to Thursday 10 to 6, half day Friday, closed Saturday. Open Christmas Day, Boxing Day and Bank Holiday.
The big red building on Golders Green Road.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Bosh, Zoom Zoom, Wallop.
And it's in.
Talk Sport.
Stand by me, love, stand by me, love. I'll buy you a diamond ring, my friend.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mites. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. He was known as the fifth Beatle, of course, wasn't he, George Best? And that
Yeah, he was,
that was his kind of hate.
Yeah.
A couple of texts have come in to 81089, and you have to forgive me, Rodney, if I mispronounce the name of the school. He says, I went to school with George, and I think it's Isnahara Secondary School in
Right.
East Belfast. And
Yes.
here's an image for you. 50 boys in a ruck, kicking and shoving each other over a tennis ball. And George, he would always emerge with the ball at his feet from this mass of bodies.
Yeah.
And this one from Richard in Swindon, and I can't use the word that is actually quoted in this, but I shall change it for the sake of not offending anyone.
Yes.
George Best was sent off playing for Fulham. Fulham striker John Mitchell asked the ref why he sent George off, and the ref replied, well, he called me a jerk. And Mitchell looks at the ref and says, well, you are, aren't you?
That's
Which is very good.
There's one here from somebody called Pumpty Dumpty, although
I suspect not his real name.
No, it says it doesn't surprise me. Best died at 59. Statistically, that's the most common age men die at. I think that might be a reference to the fact that you've read one out tonight. alleging that I'm 59, so that might be a bit of a dig, that, yes.
That might be a bit of a dig, yeah.
Yes.
I don't think that's true, actually, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, I'm certain it's not true. Right, now then, going back to earlier matters, what shirt size is Mike Parry? They want you to bring in a tape measure tomorrow night to...
Well, it would be a lot simpler if you just told me.
Well, I don't know.
Well, what if I just look at the collar? Presumably there's a size inside it.
No, it won't tell you anything.
Why not?
It won't tell you anything. I don't know.
My shirts all have the size inside the collar on a label.
Sorry?
Most shirts have the size inside the label.
Yeah, I think mine just say where it was made and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
you know
yes,
what I mean?
Especially made shirts for people who can't remember their size.
Well, I don't know. It says here, by the way, Morrissey...
Why are you so mysterious about it?
No, I'm not mysterious. Dylan, it's just not interesting to our millions of listeners.
Yeah, and I think everybody wants to know now.
Dylan says, hi, fellas, I can tell you that Morrissey legally changed his name to just Morrissey after he became a pop star. So there you go.
How nice for him. Here's one from someone who doesn't give a name. Jesus did visit Glastonbury Abbey because when I went there, I saw carved into one of the stones the inscription, JC was here. What further proof is needed?
Excellent.
And here's one from GD who says, classic Porky, here in Buddhist Thailand, you can buy a ticket to a better afterlife from the local monks.
Oh, really?
Hashtag gobbledygook.
That is brilliant. I love that. So you just go and you get like... I don't know what you call it. So,
well, if you go to one of those Buddhist temples, which
there
are many all over Southeast Asia, so there'll be guys outside saying, here's a ticket to the afterlife.
So you're assured of a divine future.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I must go over there.
Well, so much of it is about, there's nothing wrong. When I was in Singapore, right, I went to this Buddhist temple, which was where the Chinese in Singapore go.
Yeah.
And the place was absolutely full of people because it was a weekend of prayer. And they all have these kind of little prayer beads and things like that they shake. And they're all there praying for something which inevitably is commercial success.
Yes.
Or, hopeful that they'll have good health.
Yes.
They're all praying for something specific.
Sure.
And if you believe that if you pray for something specific, you're going to get it, then quite often it will happen.
Maybe. Didn't you think Singapore was boring?
I thought Singapore was a little bit sterile.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say.
Sanitised.
I only spent 3 days there, which was enough.
Yeah, I spent about 3 days there. I stayed at the Shangri-La, and it's the only hotel in the world, I think I've told you, where you get your name printed on the paper in your
Yes, I remember you said
bedroom.
you wrote a load of letters to
I did,
So you spent the entire 3 days you were there writing letters to people you didn't like.
Yeah, I did, just to prove that I was in one of the world's best hotels,
but
where
presumably
they actually put your name on the headed note
of course, go to the bar where Alan Brazil now holds the record for drinking the most Singapore gin slings.
I did, yeah.
In Raffles.
I went up to Raffles. I was quite disappointed because it had just been renovated, so it was all brand new.
Right.
So there was nothing oldie
world
about
like
it.
Peanuts on the floor.
No, there was nothing colonial about it. You know what I mean?
Well,
there were no tigers under the snooker table and all that kind of
it's
stuff.
a bit like any sort of top hotel in a way. It's it's a little bit kind of sterile, isn't it?
I saw the suite that Michael Jackson stayed in, which was like $42,000 a night or something. Yeah,
I didn't see that. I just went to the bar.
Yeah, well, I suppose you would. Yeah,
I stayed in one of those what they called cool hotels because I was there on a facility trip. Funnily enough,
really, yeah,
for the Singapore Food Festival.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
And I was staying in
did a lot of reporting on that.
No, well, I didn't actually. I deputised somebody else to do it, but it was
you probably ate most of it.
I did. No, because it was a food tour basically of Singapore. It was very nice, and but it was one of those very modern hotels with a swimming pool on the roof.
Yes, that's right.
Which was great. First time I'd ever stayed in a hotel with a swimming pool on the roof.
An infinity pool.
It was an infinity pool. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's for the benefit
Surprised
of our
you know
listeners.
what that is.
An infinity pool is a pool where you get in it. It doesn't look like it's got any borders.
Yeah,
it's not like you're in water, but there's no edges to it.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say about that George Best programme, to explain more, this ridiculous programme the other night, George Best, the autopsy, and they've got an alleged expert
The autopsy?
there. Yeah.
The autopsy?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And there's an alleged expert, guy dressed in, like, surgeon's smock. You know
no,
what
really?
I mean?
Well, they were sort of stunted up like that?
Yeah. And this guy might have been a doctor for all I know. All I know
Seems
is...
unlikely.
Do you remember the very famous liver specialist who treated George Best? He was on the telly day in, day out, giving updates. Never got him on
because people were very critical, weren't they, of the system which gave George Best a liver.
A new liver, and then he went and abused it.
Particularly those who said that they were on the transplant list and should have been ahead
of it. But it was so ridiculous. This doctor saying, I've looked at his death certificate. It doesn't mention alcoholism anywhere. Oh, do me a favour.
Yeah.
I know people who alcoholic who died, and they generally die of a blood clot on the lung or something like that. But it's all down to their alcoholism.
Yeah.
So this guy concluded he died of multiple organ failure.
Yeah.
Well, multiple organ failure happens when your liver packs up.
Although now, of course, and I wonder whether this has changed in 10 years, because you know how we always now hear about, alcohol-related deaths and smoking-related deaths.
Yes.
Because now what they often will do is put down, multiple organ failure due to alcoholism.
Yeah, maybe. Well, they
even if they don't know what it is.
Yes, I see what you mean.
And then that way it makes the figures look worse.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, absolutely. But this guy concluded it was multiple organ failure. everybody knows, I certainly know, because only 1/3 of my heart works,
Yeah.
but during the process of being treated, I was told by the doctors, well, what happens is, generally speaking, if one of your main organs fails, then the other organs kick in almost like a machine to try and take its place, overcompensate, take its place. So that when your liver goes, your kidneys and your brain and your heart have to work hard to try and compensate for what your kidneys, for what your liver did. When your heart goes, exactly the same, and eventually the strain becomes too much on the other organs. And they collapse and fail, and that's multiple organ failure. But in George's case, it was because his liver had packed up again. But I mean, I don't know how they could ever question it, because I remember the doctor I'm talking about, the great specialist who was treating him at the Cromwell Hospital in London, saying, I'm sorry, we can't stop the bleeding. He will now, sadly, will bleed to death because it's all over. That's how he died, and why you could, stack up a programme on how
they
did George Best
suggesting
die.
there was some kind of
sort of mystery
dark
death,
secret that we didn't know about.
secret mystery death, all that kind of stuff. As I say, it was as ridiculous as having a programme on. Well, how did John Kennedy actually die? Was it the bullet that blew his skull to pieces, or was it something else? Ridiculous.
I see somebody's trying to get hold of some cine footage from the government over there.
On what?
Apparently
on Kennedy?
On Kennedy's assassination.
Oh no, not another grassy knoll conspiracy theory.
Oh no, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's the family of somebody who actually shot some footage, which was then given to the FBI, which they apparently have lost the original of. And I'm not quite sure whether it means that they've got something from another angle or anything like that. But I mean, it's been seen. It's not as if it's a hidden piece of video footage. But the government say they haven't got it and they can't give it back.
What does it show?
There's a big sort of lawsuit going on. Well, I think it's the bit which you might have seen where it's taken from this side of the car, where you see Jackie sort of climbing up onto the back of the car.
And do you know what she was recovering? The top of his skull. Which with hair on it, and she grabbed it and brought it back. It's almost like a toupee, but it was his real skull.
Oh, I know.
Oh, it's terrible.
So you have seen it. But anyway, some lawsuit going on. Let's have this from Dave, who's in Banbury in Oxford. He says, hi, two mics. In 1970, we played Northampton in the FA Cup. Great man George Best
scored six.
What a man. I slept in the pub Saturday night in the park Sunday. Live in Banbury, I saw him make his debut in 1963 against West Brom. Met him 18 months before he passed away and thanked him for all the memories. What a great man.
And when he played that game against Northampton, scored six, he'd just come back from a month's suspension. He'd been suspended for a month for some terrible tackle or something, or whatever it was. Or maybe Manchester United had suspended him for drinking or something. I don't know. But anyway, he hadn't played football for 4 weeks. He came back. Do you remember one of the goals? He just stood there with the ball at his feet and just tipped it up and just lobbed it over the goalkeeper while defenders stood around him.
Absolutely amazing. Now, going back to the story about Joseph of Arimathea. Peter Richards says, if there weren't any ships, how did the Romans get here? Which is quite a good question.
Oh, no, that's fine. But the Romans had military ships and they were funded by the Roman Empire and they were big ships, had horses on them and all that kind of stuff. What I'm saying is the Phoenicians...
with horses on them?
Yeah, the Phoenicians...
Well, the tin men from Phoenicia also had big ships.
No, but not as big as the Roman Empire. And anyway, you've got to remember, the Romans came a long time after the Phoenicians and they developed boat technology.
Well, they came before Jesus was born because he was born during the Roman Empire times.
Yeah, of course he was, but the Phoenicians came before that.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you got it?
Well, they couldn't have brought Jesus before he was born, could they?
No, I know, but what I'm saying is...
bring him as an embryo.
Yes, I know this, you idiot, but what I'm saying is the Phoenicians didn't have the sort of technology the Romans had.
Well, you don't know.
Of course I know. The Phoenicians are nothing like as big an empire.
Listen to this from Lee. What is Porky on about? He said King Arthur's grave was nothing but a hole in the ground. What the hell does he think a grave is?
Yeah, but usually they fill it in. All that was in this, when they dug up this hole, all they found in it was rubble.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like there were no bodily remains, no corpse, no skeleton, no coffin. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Well, and there was no
like what's between your ears.
And there was no Queen. What's her name? What was her name? Queen
Cleopatra.
No, Guinevere.
Guinevere,
wasn't it?
Guinevere.
Guinevere.
Okay. Sorry, I lost the plot there.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Look out for the podcast a little bit later on. There was a little bit of an issue with the podcast actually earlier this morning. And,
yes, what was it?
I know that you were trying to once again, heap a load of blame
on
me
apparently
for not getting it right.
A version of it went out with a few minutes of Mr. Brazil in it.
It was a very strange thing actually, because only one or two people actually were affected by it. And as soon as we told them to basically update their software or their device, one way or another, it just disappeared. So I don't know how that happened. It's something to do with some kind of vagary of the TalkSport uploading system, I guess. But luckily it only affected a few people, and all I can say is if it happens again, then the best answer is to just somehow either unsubscribe from the podcast and then resubscribe,
right,
or just update the phone.
Update the
phone or the device that you're using to download.
Or just try it again, basically.
Yeah. Well, no, but literally do away with what you're looking at, which means you have to get rid of it.
I see.
Delete it.
I see.
And then reload it,
okay,
and then it comes back, and it seemed to work for everybody.
Okay, I mean,
I can't explain the vagaries of how these things work.
No. We alert people every morning, you and I individually, that the podcast is now up.
Yeah.
However, I
always listen to it as well. I don't know whether you do.
Yeah, I do if I can, yeah. I believe...
Well, but you switched yours on this morning, then. You didn't hear Alan Brazil, did you?
I didn't, no.
No.
But then I get a different version of it, which the boys send me a link. You see what I mean?
Well, yeah, but so you don't get it. So you get it from TalkSport's app,
yes,
basically.
Exactly, that's right, yeah. But what I was going to say is...
Normally, if that's okay, then it normally means all the other versions are okay.
Exactly. What I was going to say is that I don't believe that actually people now suddenly look at their machines and say, oh, look, there's a 2. I think that most people now are so used to it coming, they go straight to iTunes and...
Well, it's actually easier than that. If you subscribe to it, I don't know what it's like if you're on one of the Android podcast addicts or one of those.
Yes.
But if you're subscribed to it on iTunes, it actually, it sends me a message when it's in.
Just saying it's here. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, okay, yeah, great. Now, I want to tell the audience about an act of what I've just seen of gross greed. That's all I can call it.
All right. Well, let me read you a few more tweets.
Well, no. This is very important. This gross greed.
No. What's very important is that people tweet us, and we should read out what they say.
Yeah, but you don't want me to tell them about the gross greed because it involves you, of course. Yeah. Well, okay.
Does it? Why?
Well, I'll tell you why.
How does it involve me?
Because our producer, Mr. Levine, came in and proffered towards you a bag of Mars biscuits.
Biscuits, yes.
Right? I thought they
were
nice.
They are too.
I thought they were mini Mars bars.
They're
but
little
they're
cookies,
not.
basically.
They're huge cookies. They're huge.
Well, they're like chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, huge things, right?
Yeah.
So
big.
So David offered me one, and I said no. As a professional broadcaster, I refuse to masticate during broadcasting.
Thank goodness
hours,
for that.
Yes, because it overactivates your saliva glands, and therefore would interfere with my flow of words from my larynx. Okay?
I mean, it's hard enough for you to speak without eating.
However, he offered them to you.
Yeah.
And you stuck your podgy little hand into podgy big hand.
I think you're the one with the podgy little hand.
Podgy big hand into the bag of cookies.
Yes.
And you pulled out what you thought was a cookie, but your eyes lit up because it was stuck to another one. There were 2.
Well, my eyes didn't light up.
Two chocolate brown cookies.
The two of them came out at the same time. Yeah. What's
you
wrong with
refused to give one back.
Why do you get so worked up about this stuff?
Did you refuse to give one back?
Yeah, well, I thought, I'll just eat 2 then.
Exactly.
Well, what's wrong with that?
It's outrageous.
How's it outrageous?
Because David
do you know what's going on? We're on the brink of World War III.
Yeah.
And you think me taking 2 chocolate chip cookies out of a bag is outrageous?
David was offering around, as a gesture to everybody, and everybody else they were offered to in the technical area of this
There's only 2 other people here.
Just took the one.
There's only 2 other people
but
here.
You took 2 and you ate 2 and you've eaten those 2 now.
No, I haven't finished them yet.
You still got them?
I've still got one, yeah.
But you still got them because you took 2. That is an act of gross greed.
Because when I have tea, I quite like to have a biscuit.
Everything about you. You're a fat slob and you stuff your mouth full of chocolate chip cookies in the middle of our show. And that's what I want to bring to the fore so that our millions of listeners know
I hope you feel better.
Kind of a guy I'm dealing with.
Well, I hope you feel better. I don't want you to get so worked up.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you're looking very well. You look a bit pale.
I don't
want you to suddenly have a heart attack and keel over. I'll do the rest of the show on my own. Max says this. Porky's are going to tell us his measurements because we find out he's bigger than the average bear.
No, I'm smarter than the average bear,
and
not
Lee
bigger.
says, how can Parry not pronounce Tor? Should stick to his usual tick of pronouncing words phonetically.
No, it's Glastonbury Tor, yeah.
Robbie says, this is a question for Ask Porky, but I'm not going to ask it because I know that you wouldn't give an answer, and always we only ask Porky questions that you get an answer for. Yeah. What size are your shirt collars, and can you button up all your shirt buttons?
Yes, of course I can. Of course I can. Don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
And I really don't know my shirt size, honestly. Because...
And then he says, why is Porky going into a panic over his collar size? He's always calling MG fat. Come on, man. Off the man of the people. Tell us your size.
Look, it's irrelevant. Nobody's interested. We've got better things to talk about. Only 3 hours in this show, so I don't want to... Right, OMG, I'm trying to imagine old Porky struggling to fasten a 17-inch collar. Mission impossible, says Tom.
I don't think it would happen. Now, let me tell you something.
I'm not a 17, definitely. I'm definitely not a 17.
Oh, you think you're bigger than that?
Oh, a little bit bigger, I think. Yeah.
Bigger than 17?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah,
but you're smaller than me in height.
I'm not. That's ridiculous.
Of course you are.
Right.
Now, let me tell you about this. This is going to really get your gander up. If you think you're getting upset about me eating more than one biscuit, right, over the course of a 3-hour show.
Yeah.
Multi-million-pound plans to ban cars from sections of 2 major road networks in South London were unveiled today by transport bosses. Now, do you know I was telling you about how none of the cyclists that were being watched the other morning when Boris Johnson unveiled this new cycling superhighway between Kennington and Pimlico.
That's right.
And I know there are people out there who will say, well, you're always talking about London. But this goes on in other parts of the country as well. It now turns out that Vauxhall, which is, again, where the headquarters of the old spy building from James Bond, right? Yeah. Vauxhall Bridge and all that big, massive kind of conglomeration of roundabouts and feeder roads and all that between Vauxhall and Wandsworth. They want to see both of those roundabouts removed, new bus and cycle lanes run through the town centres so that cars are no longer allowed basically anywhere between Vauxhall and Wandsworth, which is a massive part of the south side of the river.
Well, not only that, if you're coming in from Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, up the A3... just to, fill in our listeners who don't live in London.
Yeah.
It's the only approach road in from Surrey is up the A3.
Exactly.
All the way from...
which comes right into Wandsworth.
Yeah, it's all the way from Portsmouth, right? And then the A23, which then comes up through Croydon.
Gatwick,
That's right, Gatwick.
Yeah.
And they both merge at this Vauxhall junction.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if they close that down and make it pedestrian, it would be a 2-mile detour over the river. You'd have to go over the river, over a bridge, which would congest bridges, come down the other side. It would be a nightmare. It's unthinkable.
Well, what they say, Transport for London claim the plans would would reduce traffic and make the areas safer and more pleasant. Presumably somebody somewhere is saying to them, well, of course, if you block all cars from getting access to this area, people will stop using cars. They won't, will they?
No, of course they won't. I mean, to say it'll be safer, well, the whole world would be safer if there were no cars.
Now,
but there are cars.
Did you know
there
that
are cars and we have to have
did you know
cars
that
and lorries.
that there were cycle superhighways with numbers? Did you know that?
Hey?
Did you know that they have numbers
what,
attached
you
to them?
mean like Cycle 1 and Cycle 2
Cycle
and Cycle 3?
Cycle Superhighway 8 would be extended to the town centre of Wandsworth, right? And the plan would be for the network to then connect to Cycle Superhighway 5, which is the one on the north side of the river, which has basically completely screwed up the embankment on the north side.
It's just complete madness. And, already we're getting loads and loads of reports from people who live in other towns saying, our local councils... We reported on one the other night.
Yeah.
What was it? In Devon or somewhere. They spent £60,000 on a
Well, they spent £30,000 building a bus lane.
That's right.
And then they're going to spend another £30,000 getting rid of it.
because it blocks up all the traffic.
Well, the good news for you is, right, that there's a consultation document which is available at Vauxhall and at Wandsworth, because if it's favourably received, it will go ahead. So if you can, it might be worth you actually going there and saying, look, actually, I'm one who's going to vote against this.
Yeah, definitely.
And guess how much TfL are spending on improving all of the roads around here?
No,
£4 billion. So forget 30,000 for a bus lane.
Where do they get £4 billion from?
£4 billion.
That's from the taxpayer.
I know.
That's taxpayers' money.
I know.
That's me paying that. And I tell you who else is paying it, people who get caught on... Do you know how many cameras I now pass on the way home when I leave you here at 4 o'clock most mornings?
No.
Won't be this morning, of course, because I'll be on later with Mr. Brazil on the breakfast show. Between here and my home in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, Mike, 10 cameras.
Yeah.
10.
10.
Now, the thing is, right, that you should say to yourself, well, at least you know where they all are.
Yeah.
But when you've got 10 cameras en route, you've only got to be distracted for 1 second.
Yeah.
That is something you hear on the radio, or I've got a hands...
Are you in a built-up area?
Me, I'm...
Oh, you're talking about dual carriageway?
I'm talking about going out of London. Most of those are in Greater London. Most of those are in Greater London.
So it's a 50 limit or something?
It's a 30 limit for most of the way.
Why don't you just put the old, cruise control on?
Well, I could do, except for the fact that you can't, because you've got to watch out for lights and all this kind of stuff and all that. But listen, what I'm saying is this: I could be distracted by the phone ringing because I've got a hands-free system.
Crane flying overhead.
It could be anything, and you've only got to be distracted for 1 second, right? For 1 second, and suddenly, bang, you've gone through a light at 34 miles an hour, and you've suddenly got a criminal record for speeding. It is an absolute
You don't get a criminal
disgrace.
record for speeding at 34 miles an hour.
Well, I think you do.
Rubbish.
I think you do.
How about this one from Pete? He says, Ray Porky's collar size, if you know the size of your hands, are you able to get them around his neck? That's very good. I like that. I might try that.
You always think that threats of...
I'm not sure I could get my hands around your rather bulbous neck, actually.
Physical violence against me are funny, don't you?
I do. I'm just going to have a bit more cookie in a second, so look into the light for a moment.
Yeah, you will.
Look into the light.
By the way, can you imagine that old Sven, right, who's now apparently got somebody's given him another job out in China.
Oh, he's got another one?
Yeah, he's trying to tempt Wayne Rooney there. Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's an old story. That was about 2 days ago, wasn't it?
No, this is from Sven's point of view. Come and join me.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm Sven. Sven.
I'm Dutch now.
Sven. Ericsson.
Yeah, you apparently got the words wrong of that the other day.
Yeah, I did.
Anyway, now, coming up very shortly, it's going to be Ask Porky. And we have to work out what the quiz is going to be this week as well. This is Talk Sport.
Tomorrow night from 6, Europa League football on Talk Sport.
Perfect timing! Hear uninterrupted full match commentary of Carabao versus Spurs.
What a goal that is!
Plus, get touchline reports of Celtic versus Ajax and Liverpool versus Bordeaux.
What a goal!
Followed by a post-match phone-in on the sports bar.
Europa League football on Talk Sport.
With Arnold Clark, it's about making a great save on your next car. Visit arnoldclark.com.
You can choose a free gift if you buy a 4G handset from Tesco Mobile this Christmas. So that's a Samsung Galaxy J5 for just $16.50 a month and a £20 gift card for Mum. Nope. Or a subscription to Today's Golfer for Dad. Nah. Or some Bluetooth headphones for little old me. Decisions. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Subject to signing up to a 24-month contract with Tesco Mobile. 4G subject to coverage. For terms, charges and rules of redemption, visit tescomobile.com. Subject to availability and status. Offer ends 22nd of December.
The Russians got our spy pilot, and we've got their spy. We want you to negotiate the swap.
Don't miss Bridge of Spies. The film critics are calling magnificent. 5 stars.
Why aren't we hanging him? Every person matters.
Richly entertaining.
Do you know how people will look at us? The family of a man trying to free a traitor?
You're doing this for us.
Spielberg's craftsmanship is breathtaking.
The next mistake our governments make could be the last one.
Tom Hanks.
Let's be clear. Nobody is safe.
Bridge of Spies. In cinemas Thursday.
This is Private Neil Patel getting out of a helicopter on an overseas training exercise. He's also doing an IT apprenticeship. This is Private Julia Dean on a live firing exercise. She's also completing an apprenticeship in engineering. With an army apprenticeship, you get paid to be a soldier while learning practical skills. The Army is the largest provider of apprenticeships in the UK. With thousands of jobs available now, there's more than one way to be the best. Apply now. Search Army Jobs.
Saturday afternoon from 5:30. Exclusive national radio commentary of Leicester versus Manchester United. Barclays Premier League live on Talk Sport.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. Getting lots of support here on the biscuits and tea front. Leslie says,
are you?
and she sent a picture of a cup of tea and some biscuits, saying tea is always better with 2 biscuits.
Oh, yeah. Well, not in the middle of a show, thank you, when you're supposed to be, concentrating on developing ideas, stimulating the intellectual conversation with your broadcasting partner, all this kind of stuff. That can't go down if you're stuffing your face full of chocolate chip cookies made by Mars.
I'm not doing it.
It's just not good enough.
Well, it doesn't matter who makes them, does it? Matt says, ugh, here he goes again. Porky's whiny again about cookies like a blinking child. Man up, Parry, he says.
Yes, here we go. Any chance of a Porky quiz on some of the bold statements that Porky's made in the past? He mostly talked gobbledygook, we need to guess what he was on about.
Yeah. Here's one from Blobfish, who says, how about making the quiz on the history of the Premier League, as it's a sports show, unless you have already done that topic? I think we did that when it was one of the anniversaries of the Premier League, didn't we?
Johnny Rep says, it's Surrey, not stockbroker belt, Surrey.
Yeah.
You're not a stockbroker, Porky.
Yeah.
Says Johnny Rep. That's a bit harsh.
True. Jeff says most of Camden is now 20 miles an hour. Well, I think there's hardly any boroughs in London now that are not 20 mile an hour boroughs.
My road is 20 miles an hour.
Why don't you buy a Road Angel? Warns you of cameras. Most GPS systems also have camera alerts.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they do. But, I mean, in the end, it's not a question of avoiding getting done for speeding.
That's right.
I mean, nobody wants to get done for speeding, and you shouldn't really be speeding anyway.
I totally
The fact
agree.
of the matter is that you cannot actually get up to any kind of speed at all.
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you something, right? I'll tell you what drives me mad.
Yeah.
Tuesdays is the day when my binmen come round, right?
Binmen?
Yeah. Now, we have loads of binmen in my place.
So how many binmen have you got?
About 3.
3?
Yeah, because...
Well, that's not that many.
No, I mean 3 lorries, 3 different lorries.
3 different companies?
3 different lorries do 3 different things.
Really?
Like one comes along and takes the communal sort of bins.
Oh, yeah.
The next one comes along and takes the bottles in the bottle bank.
Right.
And the third one comes along and takes the, paper and waste paper and the other one. You know what I mean? All that kind of
so
rubbish.
2 recycling and 1 regular rubbish.
Exactly. But guess what?
Do you remember when they started doing this? I think it was down in one of the boroughs in South London, somewhere near Charlton, where they started to put. They asked you to put food waste separate from your regular rubbish. So they gave you an actual receptacle, which was like a little sort of plastic red box.
I see.
Which you were supposed to put food in.
Yes.
And of course, if you put food in something and leave it there for a week, you're gonna get all sorts of infestation.
No.
Well, no, but you're not supposed to put it outside until they come to collect it. You're supposed to leave it in your house.
Yeah, disgusting.
It's
rotting
horrible,
food.
isn't it?
No, I'll put it down the waste
food.
disposal. Now then, what I was going to say is that what happens is they whip these bins up so quickly at the back of these lorries, and they do, very efficient and all that. Then the lid opens and all pours out. But occasionally, an over-enthusiastic bin man, and I refuse to call them anything else, right?
Why would you call them anything else?
Well, because they're...
sanitation engineer.
Yeah, sanitation executive or something they're called these days, But I call them bin men affectionately because the bin man, when I was a kid, used to come up our back entry, open the gate, come in, lift a huge bin up on his shoulder,
that's right.
walk down the entry, tip it into a lorry that had a little sliding door on the back.
Sometimes they would take two, wouldn't they?
Yeah, take two, one on each shoulder, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And then bring the bins back, no problem at all. And they never, not so much
but
as...
you see, in those days, we had a lot less rubbish.
Yeah.
You'd have to admit that.
Not so much as a banana skin fell on the floor.
No, but we also had a lot less rubbish.
Yeah, but hang on, but listen. So
you weren't buying stuff in all these packages.
What happened is, one of these bins today was whipped up, and then drum, and then whipped down again. Yeah. And a load of it came out and flew off the back of the lorry. Yeah. So it's now all over my road.
Right.
It's in my
Why did you go
gutter.
chasing after and shouting at them?
Because I didn't notice until later, did I?
Oh.
So now...
Well, maybe it wasn't their fault.
So now it means when I go home, I'm going to have to, get the old plastic gloves on and get my litter stick out, because I've got a litter stick in the car now, carry with me, and go around picking up all the rubbish which the binman left behind.
Well, how do you know it hasn't all blown away by now?
Well, it won't have blown away because the lorry actually ran over it and ground it all into the floor.
Well, what sort of rubbish are we talking about?
Tins.
Well, shouldn't that be in the recycling?
Well, I've no idea.
Who's not been recycling the tins?
I've no idea.
Well, it must be your rubbish.
Not me. It's not my rubbish. It's not my rubbish.
You're the only one that eats out of a tin.
No. I'm talking about Coca-Cola tins.
You mean
Coca-Cola
cans?
tins. Yeah, cans. That's right. I mean, cans, yeah. And all sorts of things. Plastic bottles.
Well, that's all recyclable stuff.
It's all disgusting. And I'm
not
having
it. Put it?
What?
Where are you going to put it when you picked it up with your stick?
Well, I put it in a plastic bag and I throw it back into the communal bin.
The recycling?
Eh?
What, the recycling
No,
bin?
not the recycling bin.
Well,
you have to put it.
Well, it's obviously recycling, though.
Well, it's hard luck. They had the chance to take it away.
No,
properly.
I think there might be a euro fine coming your way if you do that.
But that drives me mad. Honestly, the lack of care of the modern day bin man. He doesn't have the care for the community which old binman had. You know what I mean?
The great thing about New York actually was the fact that the bin companies
collected every day.
Well, not only collect every day, but all the trash companies were run by the mafia.
That's right.
So nobody messed about with them. Really.
No, exactly.
And they did it very efficiently.
They did it very
efficiently. You see that one of the mafia guys has warned ISIS not to come anywhere near New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's handy.
Came out yesterday and was like, don't come here.
Yeah, because if you come here, we'll go there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what about this quiz then? Because you've got to give the independent quizmasters time to set a quiz.
I've just given you the ample opportunity to name what the subject is of the quiz.
So I can name the subject?
No, I've just named it.
What?
I've just read out a tweet from somebody who said, Porky, you don't live in Stockbroker Belt, you live in Surrey.
Yeah. So what, do you want it on Surrey?
Why not?
You want a quiz on Surrey?
Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
The county of Surrey?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, there we go. County of Surrey, there you go. Stockbroker Belt, it'll be on the map. Now, the other thing I need to talk to you about...
Stockbroker Belt isn't on the map.
The other thing I need to talk to you about is overflow pipes, okay?
Yes.
What a nightmare I've had with the overflow pipes this week.
Why?
A nightmare. Because...
Well, whose overflow pipes?
Mine.
Well, in your penthouse, your lavish penthouse property.
Exactly. The very highest point of the penthouse has two overflow pipes, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm...
Well, have you got a big water tank above you or something?
Two water tanks. One that
You've
feeds...
got two water tanks above your flat?
Yeah, you've got the cold water tank.
Dear God.
Yeah, you've got the cold water tank.
Does it sound like some kind of hovel?
And then a feeder... No, you idiot.
This is on the outside of the building.
No, it's in the loft space.
In the loft?
Above my penthouse.
Why do you have to have the loft filled with somebody else's water tank?
It's not. It's my water tank.
You've got your own water tank?
I've got my own water tank, yeah.
Well, how big is it?
Well, I don't know, it's not the size of a swimming pool, but I mean, it's big, because it's full of cold water.
Well, why do you need a big water tank of your own?
because
what about everybody else's water?
Well, that's up to them. But I mean, as I've got, a wet room and a separate bathroom and a central heating system to serve, you do need a lot of water. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it has two overflow pipes. Now,
what do you mean? Why, the central heating system should be self-contained, surely?
No, it
Well,
works.
the water pumps in and out of it. What is it like the Niagara Falls?
No, it works from a completely separate boiler system.
Yeah, but
doesn't it?
surely the water inside your radiator system doesn't actually travel anywhere.
It does. It travels around. That's what water
Yeah,
does.
but it travels around. It's like the inside of a car radiator.
Yes, that's
you
right.
You don't have to keep putting water in.
No, but it recycles itself in the tank upstairs.
What?
It does. It recycles itself.
Well, yeah, but then it doesn't go anywhere, so you're not using any water.
No, it does. Believe me. An overflow pipe is to stop the tank from flooding. Okay.
Yes.
So that if the buoyancy goes up in the
ballcock area,
it flows out.
Yeah.
And that's what's been happening lately. And so
you got a faulty ballcock.
Two faulty ballcocks,
Really?
actually, which is a bit of a shock. So
It
it took
is.
a whole day to fix. I fixed it. Cost me an immense amount of money.
Right.
But I didn't charge the owners of the building for it, because although it's my penthouse, I bought it on a leasehold. Although I've bought.
Well, aren't they responsible for the water tank?
No, I am.
Why?
Because it's above me and the overflow pipe is my responsibility. Now, some of the properties I own, I have bought the freehold of.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you can pay 27 grand on top of the price you paid for the property and own the freehold, right?
Man of the people.
Yeah, absolutely. But on this particular building, I don't own. I only own the leasehold.
It's shocking the amount of money you talk about for this kind of stuff.
I do own it for 115 years. So it'll outlive me, so to speak. You know what I mean? But I got it all fixed, and that saved the rest of the building from a problem.
Well, how many of these buildings have you paid an extra 27 grand to in order to have the freehold?
Well, it's a thing that's happened over the years. I
Well,
don't
like
suddenly
10 of them?
I don't suddenly go around saying,
Quarter of a million?
I think I'll
That's
pay
an extraordinary amount of money.
No, it's value of property going up over the years. It's cumulative, believe me. Cumulative. Don't worry about it.
Here's
okay?
one from Jeff.
But I
who
had
says,
to get the overflow pipes fixed, and it was a pain in the
sorry
in the
for
butt.
you. I'm terribly sorry. Porky, did they send a personal bottle lorry to your house for your empty Pinot bottles?
How funny is that?
That's not an Ask Porky,
No.
because funnily enough, that's exactly what's coming up next right here on TalkSport.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
There's one thing, and it is time for Ask Porky. We've got a record number of questions
Have
for
we?
you this week. I have to tell you.
I think this particular exercise we do is growing, Mike.
Yes.
You know, I want you to take your part in the credit for
that's very kind of
establishing
you.
this platform for our millions of listeners,
Yeah.
because I am here to help.
I know you are, and we've got a lot of questions here, so I'm going to ask you, as ever,
Yes.
to be as helpful and as brief as you can, in order that we can rush through
Yes.
as many of them as possible. Some of them
Good
are
idea.
a little bit philosophical, some of them sporting related, some of them, of course, just personal problems that people want sorting out. Here's one from Harry to kick things off. If you woke up tomorrow and were the last person left on Earth, what would be the first thing you would do?
I would go and search out to see if there were any animals left on Earth as well that needed my help. It needed feeding or watering or just comforting.
or eating.
Not eating at all, or comforting because of the shock of seeing all humankind disappear. Most animals prefer humans to other animals, so I'd be there for them.
OK. Here's one from Isaac. He sent it in on Facebook. He says, Dear Porky, bricks and mortar or stocks and shares?
Bricks and mortar in every occasion, although it goes down sometimes in a 20-year dip or something like that, always comes back and goes further up. Stocks and shares, the problem with those is short-term gain, long-term pain.
Here's one from Nick, who says, just heard Emily Bishop is taking a break from Corrie. You are now the only person alive who has never taken a holiday. Could you please explain?
Well, I think that I heard that news about Emily Bishop, who, of course, is played by an actress who is the mother of one of our colleagues on national newspapers, and so that is a connection with our business. Coronation Street's my favourite programme on television in terms of longevity, and it's amazing, her longevity. And Ken Barlow now remains the only actor who was there from the start of the series back in 1963, I believe, who is still appearing on a weekly basis. I will continue to watch it, but I want to pay tribute to Emily Bishop for the fantastic contribution she's made to the culture of television in this country.
OK. Jonathan says this on Facebook. I'm a happily married man with 2 kids and an averagely paid job that I enjoy. I live in a nice 3-bedroom semi in Sale, one of Porky's old stomping grounds. Am I a complete failure?
No, you're a complete success. Providing you're happy with your semi-detached suburban Mr. James, provided you're happy with the role you play in the life of your 2 children, providing you're happy in the relationship you have with your wife, and providing that you regard your job as worthwhile on a daily basis because you can get home and see your children and your family, you've got a very worthy life. You are not stressed out by the stresses and strains, the hopes, the failures, the disappointments, the backstabbing that I've gone through in my life, and therefore I envy you.
Mark has sent this one in on text, 81089. He says, I can only afford to go to Wembley once a year. Should I go to an England friendly in a half-empty stadium to see an experimental team, or should I go to an NFL game in a packed stadium with a great atmosphere?
No, neither. You go to the FA Cup final. That is the greatest domestic game in the world still to this day.
You can't get tickets for that, can you?
Yes, you can. You can. Eventually you can get tickets for the FA Cup final. You've got to duck and weave, you've got to show rat-like cunning, and you've got to show a bit of initiative, but of course you can get a ticket for the FA Cup final. It's just a question of finding out where to go, or saving quite a lot of money over 2 or 3 years and buy one on the black market. But whatever you do, you should go.
Don't suggest that people buy them on the black market.
Why not?
I don't think that's allowed.
Why not? Why not?
Because it's illegal.
That's life. That's life.
Yeah.
In the end, you've got to bend the rules.
All right. Tex says this. Porky, if you think the Bible is an accurate account of our origins, why are there no mentions of any dinosaurs?
Well, this question has been asked a million times. The point is that dinosaurs disappeared off the earth 40 million years ago, and the Bible is about a society that was there but 3,000 years ago.
Right.
Okay?
Isn't it 6,000?
Sorry?
Isn't it 6,000?
No, BC was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay?
Isn't the Bible 6,000 years old?
Parts of it are. The Old Testament is.
That's what I
But
mean.
the New Testament is just between 2,000 and 3,000 years old, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So Noah and all his mob, 6,000.
Yeah.
Jesus and his mob, 3,000.
Thank you.
Okay?
Here's one from Willie. It says, Porky, I've been driving trucks for a living for the past 25 years. Do you think I've wasted 25 years of my life on this meaningless job and my time would have been better spent finding a cure for cancer?
No, not at all. I think it's a very credible job driving a truck. And by the way, you're in a good profession because there is a worldwide shortage of truck drivers, particularly in Europe and particularly in Great Britain, where we move 87% of our goods on the back of lorries. How about that? However, if you want to go up in the world, you could learn to drive a crane, because crane drivers, i.e. drivers of mobile cranes, get paid better than ordinary lorry drivers. It depends what you're...
And you love mobile cranes,
Oh,
don't
yes,
you?
I do. It depends what you're looking around in the back of your lorry. If it's... for instance, there's 8 building sites near me at the moment, and the guys who are making the money are those who come along with a tipper lorries. All the rubble is put into the back of their lorry by one of those grab-like devices, you know what I mean, off another lorry.
Yeah.
And then they drive away to some quarry and tip it all out and then come back again. And apparently they get paid £500 a trip, and they can do 2 of those a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's one from Gorn, who says, I've just bought our first house, and it's opposite her mum's house. Does Porky have any advice to keep the peace?
No, move now. I mean, that's...
Well, they just bought the place.
Well, it's disaster. I don't know what you do. Well, you gone mad buying a house opposite your mother-in-law? You must be crazy. I'd rather have a house opposite a cemetery. I wouldn't move into that house. Of course, what you can do...
Full of holes in the ground.
What you can do is be smarter than the average bear and change your tune to keep your wife happy and your mother-in-law. Say, oh, I never bought it as an investment property. I'm doing it up and then we're going to rent it out. I've become a buy-to-let landlord. She will then admire you for having become a self-employed businessman as well as a professional.
Businessman.
Businessman.
Mark has sent this in, and he's our correspondent on HMS Sheffield, you might remember.
Oh, yeah, great.
Dear Porky, HMS Richmond. Dear Porky, can you please explain what a Type 24 frigate is, please, as all my shipmates on HMS Richmond, which is a Type 23 frigate, are none the wiser. Also, a frigate does not provide air cover as it's an anti-submarine ship.
Yeah.
Please sack your colleagues in Naval Intelligence. They supply you regularly with balderdash.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You can confuse the numbers. The 23 is the older version of the new 45, I think, OK? So in Portsmouth, we've got some 23s. The 23, by the way, was one of the ships that was commanded by the first ever lady captain, do you remember, in the Royal Navy?
No.
Who unfortunately is no longer a Lady Navy, Royal Navy captain.
Why?
Because it is alleged she had a relationship with her second officer.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
And,
a bit of Rogerisation.
A bit of Rogerisation was alleged to have gone on in the captain's cabin.
She was made to walk the plank.
And she was made to walk the plank, you're absolutely right. So that was a Type 23. The new ones are the 45s, and they're the ones that have this spinning ball on the top with all the points that come out of it. And they're the ones that could...
Well, like a floating mine. mine.
It's like a floating mine, actually, funny enough, on the top of the forecastle or whatever. And those ships could be parked in Portsmouth Harbour and take an aeroplane out flying over New York Harbour. That's how efficient they are.
Okay.
That's why we don't need as many warships these days as we used to have, although my belief is we still need a lot more. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's one from Steve. I'm thinking of leaving my body to medical science, thus saving loads of money in funeral costs. Is this a good idea?
Well, it depends what sort of shape your body's in. I mean, I can tell you that a lot of my friends from the King's School Chester went to university to study medicine. Some went to Oxford and Cambridge. A lot of them went to Liverpool, which is our nearest university. And one of my friends, who is an Everton fan, and that's why he went to Liverpool University, told me that it was quite repulsive to walk into a lecture theatre in the mornings when you'd been on bladderisation duty all night, as medical students often do, to some quite excess, to have to go into a lecture theatre for a lesson where there was a stiff, and that's the only word you can use for it, floating around in a vat of formaldehyde. Formaldehyde, that's right, formaldehyde. Formaldehyde. And the job that day was to cut this stiff up and examine his internal organs, not something that you would recommend if you just had bacon and eggs for breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay?
Tommy from Hartlepool on Facebook says, my work colleagues, Porky, are despicable.
Yeah.
They take time off when sick and smoke. I personally come in when sick, pass my germs on and secretly smoke. Am I better than these other bottom dwellers?
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to weigh it up on the day. Take each case on merit. The point is, we have some people who are just shysters. For instance, we have a colleague here at Talk Sport who occasionally says, I'm too tired to do the news. I'm going for a lie down. And these sort of people are, despicable scumbags who, weaken the team, weaken the link of the chain of command, and, frankly, need to look at themselves and do better.
Now, I'm going to try and squeeze a couple more in here. Adam says, Porky, who annoys you more, old MG or Piers Morgan?
Well, Piers Morgan's a big success in life, and I see that he started this week on the sofa with Susanna Reid.
He has.
I think she was flirting with him a little bit, you know what I mean? Which means that she must be hard up for company, but we'll pass on that one. I don't despise either of the two men. I have worked with them both for a number of years, worked with Mike a little bit longer than old Piers, but excellent professionals. And Piers, I hope, is very successful at reviving that, is it TVAM show?
It's called Good Morning Britain.
Good Morning Britain.
GMB.
GMB.
Same name as a union.
I think if anybody can revive Good Morning Britain, it's old Piers. I think he's an excellent broadcaster.
I'm going to squeeze one more in, even though I've been told not to, right? Does Porky believe in reincarnation, says Kelly? If so, what does he hope he comes back as?
I do not believe in reincarnation as such, in that you
said you did last night.
That you can die as a human being, then come back as a Labrador dog. However, if it ever did happen to me, I'd want to come back as a parrot, because I'd like to be free as a bird.
Yeah, you sound like a bit like a parrot already, so you're halfway there.
How dare you? After I've just delivered the eulogy to dozens of people and helped them sort out their lives, all you can do is end it on a note of mockery. You are despicable.
I'm terribly sorry. That was Ask Porky. There were loads of questions that we didn't get to, so we might try and do some more of those next week. But meanwhile, same time next week, Ask Porky. Tomorrow night, of course, it's Porky Vision. This is Talk Sport.
Get a generous helping of the latest odds and tasty tips with Paddy's Punts. Every weekday afternoon from 4 on Drive with Durham and Goffey on Talk Sport with Paddy Power. You're welcome. With the form on the football.
What a game.
The going on the GGs.
And they're off.
The crack on the cricket. 6. And lashings of Paddy's famous generosity.
Come on, gives a break to me a bit of crack, isn't it?
Get your tips while they're hot with Paddy's Punts. Weekday afternoons from 4 with Adrian Durham and Darren Goff on Talk Sport with Paddy Power. You're welcome.
Pneumonia strikes up to 1 in 100 of us every year. Don't let it be you. Vaccination can help protect you from the most common type of pneumonia. Speak to your pharmacist, doctor or nurse about pneumococcal pneumonia vaccination today, or search Pneumonia Strikes. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Just how easy is it to buy an Ideal Logic Plus boiler from Plum Centre? Morning, John. Could you sell me an ERP-ready Ideal Logic Plus boiler and flue? Certainly, Bill. It really is that easy. Pick up an Ideal Logic Plus boiler and flue today with a 7-year warranty from just £625 at any one of over 500 Plum Centre branches nationwide. Or visit plumcentre.co.uk. Price excludes VAT at 20%. See website for details, terms and conditions.
The following business opportunity is live and waiting for you. In Spain right now, they're looking for UK-made, electric-powered recycling trucks. This could be a positive move for your business. The demand is out there. You could be too. To find your opportunity, visit exportingisgreat.gov.uk.
Watch out! This just in from the sports desk.
It's all kicking off.
Oh.
Talk Sport.
No, you recognise that, obviously.
It's not Christmas yet. We can't start playing Christmas songs.
No, I totally agree. Except I have to say that this year, everything has happened so much earlier than any other year I can remember. I mean, literally, where are we now? We're November the 25th.
25th.
For the last week,
it's Thanksgiving tomorrow in
It is
America.
Thanksgiving tomorrow, yeah.
Maybe we should have some kind of exchange of gifts.
Yes, maybe, yes.
Shall I bring you a, I don't know, chicken or something?
Chicken? No, I don't want a chicken.
Turkey?
No, I wouldn't have anything like that off you. It might be full of poison.
Well, I could bring you some turkey, turkey roll.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
You can make some nice sandwiches with it.
No, I don't do that, thank you, no.
Well, what would you like? I'm offering to bring you a present.
Yeah, something that's not food, to be honest.
Something that's not food.
You know, you might have injected it with something, or somebody might have injected it if they knew you're getting it for me, or something like that, because I can be a target of people. Listen, what I was going to say is, much earlier this year than any year before, I just can't believe that I'm walking around now seeing, when when Christmas is coming, because the shops clear rows and rows and aisles and aisles of food and just stick chocolates in and Christmas stuff and all that. That's all happening. It's happened so much earlier this year.
It seems to be. I'll tell you what I noticed as well.
Yeah.
When I was in London at the weekend, the Strand has got Christmas lights.
I know, you put a picture out on it.
And I've never seen Christmas lights in the Strand. Is this the first year they've done it?
I don't know. But
I mean, they were sponsored by some bank or other, but I've never seen Christmas lights in the Strand.
Well, they look very nice.
They do look very
pretty.
nice.
I agree.
And Covent Garden looked great. I mean, the tree is up and everything.
Yeah.
It does seem a little early.
I mean, I didn't even start tweeting out because I thought, well, this is going to become the norm. When in September, I noticed an advert in a restaurant I use saying book now for Christmas. And I thought, well, and it has come so early now. But anyway, the reason that we were just having a look at that Noddy Older stuff, obviously that was the most famous Christmas song ever. Here we are, Merry Christmas.
Although without the voice, apparently.
Without the voice, yeah. Because a supermarket has devised a formula to find the cheeriest voice for its Christmas self-service tills.
Oh, yeah.
So they're actually going to, the voice that says, put your bag in this area and all that kind of stuff, missing bag and all that kind of stuff.
Or, what is it? Something in the bagging area?
Yeah.
Unknown item?
Unknown item
in the bagging area.
Foreign item, alien item in the bagging area. And all the technology for it is based on the tones of Slade's Noddy Holder.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's...
did they regionalise it, though?
Well, no, I don't think they do. Now, this is Morrison's, right? And this exercise has been called Festive Fred.
Oh, yeah.
And what they do is they've got to find a voice that takes in the qualities.
Well, they won't be using yours, will they?
Well, they might do.
I mean, they could have you shouting at people.
No, they might do.
Go on, you scumbag, get a move on.
Well, I don't think I would ever say that. It takes in the qualities from Merry Christmas, Everybody, plus intonations from Terry Wogan, plus that madman that we've talked about several times on the show now, Brian Blessed.
Oh, yeah.
The man who
you wouldn't want him. He's everywhere.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want him.
By the way, another one. Another one.
By the way, I found a Christmas menu for you.
Oh, yeah.
When I was out over the weekend. Did I tell you?
No.
This is great. Festive specials available daily.
Yes.
Because I figure that you might need to find somewhere to go on Christmas Day.
Well, I won't because I'll be with the family. But it's nice of you to think of me.
I'm actually going to send a picture out.
Okay.
Before the show ends.
Okay.
On Twitter because it's available in various sort of hostelries around the city.
And you think it'll suit me? Why? Because it's got my sort of food in it?
It says it's our festive sharing plank. It's $11.95.
What?
It includes pigeon blankets, crispy breaded prawns with tartar sauce, stuffing balls, smoked cheese bites with a cranberry dip and chips. Look, it's a Christmas plank. For $11.95.
You made that up.
I haven't. Look, I've got the whole menu there, look.
Where's the
festive specials, Christmas plank.
Where's the plank bit come from?
Well, I don't know why they call it a plank, but it seems to suit you down to the ground, doesn't it? Christmas plank.
find that very offensive.
Look, it's because they put it all on a plank there.
What they put on a plank for?
Well,
what's that got to do with me?
Because you're a plank.
Oh, how ridiculous.
I'm going to put it out now.
Anyway, getting back to this voice has got to be a mixture of noddy old, Terry Wogan, Brian Blessed, the man who claims, he helped a woman give birth in a park and then chewed through the umbilical cord and then licked the babies until it was clean.
It's horrendous.
And this one, by the way, the one that you've just said, he claims every time he meets somebody famous, they say, "Oh, could you say it, please?"
Yeah.
Say what?
Gordon's alive.
Gordon's alive?
Yeah.
And he expects us to believe that one man who said it to him was David Cameron, the Prime Minister. Please say it,
Well, don't forget Picasso, when he asked Picasso, when he met Picasso and asked him if he could draw him a picture to prove he was Picasso. And then Brian Blessed threw it away.
He threw it away.
And it's now worth $50 million.
$50 million Picasso he threw away because he didn't think it was very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was saying here is an expert in voices.
Why are we not getting involved in this?
Yeah, hang on. Ms. Liz Cooper said animated voices make listeners' brains release the feel-good chemical called dopamine. Dopamine, and cheers people up. Yeah. And the whole idea of this exercise is to find the trigger to the dopamine effect, which means that people will come back to your supermarket again and again and again because they feel that they've had a very good time there and felt good in there.
Surely you could impress upon them that you're an expert in dopamine.
Well, I think I am. I think you'll find that if the exercise was ever done, if the experiment was ever carried out. What are you laughing at?
I was laughing at this tweet from Tom, who sent in saying, "Former aldehyde, didn't he play for Bolton?"
Sorry, why is it that you have to jump on every single word I utter? I just don't get it.
Well, because it's very funny.
I just don't get it.
Some of the people who listen to this show are very, very clever people.
Honestly.
And some of the stuff that they come up with is brilliant.
Some of this nonsense you come out with will just bewilder our millions of listeners because they think, why do you take every opportunity to try and belittle the Porkmeister?
Absolutely not.
When it's obvious that his range of knowledge over so many subjects is so far and superior.
Well, not according to Anthony.
It is.
He says if you're not winning, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
The plank should try practicing what he preaches. #empty head.
Oh, I see. You've put this picture out now. And you think this is funny?
Well, a plank, Christmas plank. I mean, what could be better for you?
I don't know. But I mean, what you've jumped on there is the fact that you initiated the word plank to describe me.
Which is now in common parlance.
And then go out looking for, a menu which just happens to say Christmas plank.
I didn't. I just happened to fall upon it in a particular hostelry.
And in which particular hostelry was it?
It was at a place just somewhere in the centre of town. I just went in there and they had these kind of flyers out, But apparently, I mean, if you look it up, you can find any number of these places where you can go. Now, what about you joining in on this, making use of your voice like? Why don't you get in touch with these supermarkets? Because, I mean, you have got quite a distinctive voice.
Yeah, well, so I said.
You have to tone it down. You'd have to be kind of nicer to people, as per what I was telling you at the start of the show.
There is absolutely no doubt that my voice triggers, good vibes in a lot of people's heads, without a shadow of a doubt.
I'm sure that's true.
If they're driving along and they suddenly hear the Portmeister's voice sort of leap out of the radio and all that, they feel better.
Yeah.
They feel safer. They feel the world's a better place. The sun starts to come out and shine. The rain stops. All that sort of effect I think I have on people and listen to my voice. And I'm not being big-headed here, but I mean, it's my job in life as a communicator to try and express that effect, to try and reach out to those people. And that's what I want to do.
That's a very modern phrase, that, isn't it? Reach out.
Well,
everybody now reaches out for things, I mean, apart from reach out and touch someone, which is a song.
Reach out and touch somebody's...
Well, that was a different song. But, I mean, now everybody talks about, I reached out to him, or I reached out to her, or, I reached out to them.
Apparently, official bodies now use it to say, we will reach out to the person you've complained about and say, instead of saying, we'll speak to.
No, it's now in common parlance.
Reach out is now replaced speak to.
Yeah,
but I mean, for years, the word solutions replaced idea, didn't it?
That's right.
So it was, you see all these lorries with drainage solutions from Draingood or something like that. Where it used to... Where it used to be.
Mark in Stourbridge, I presume he's in Stourbridge, says, binmen by me are just called refuse collectors. There's no on-the-job training, though. You just pick it up as you go along.
Pick it up as you go along. I quite like that. What was the one I heard the other day? Oh, yeah. Are you aware of this terrible joke that Jimmy Carr told on Did you think it was that offensive?
No, I didn't.
I didn't think it was offensive at all.
But it's probably best not to retell it.
I don't think we should,
because a lot of people have complained about it already.
They've complained about it, yeah. But I didn't. I thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
The fact that Rod Stewart was sitting there.
But Rod didn't laugh, though, apparently.
No, he reacted with a completely stone face.
Well, I mean, as
apparently.
ever, when things like that happen on BBC shows, everybody just kind of turns a whiter shade of pale.
That's right,
because they know what's coming next.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as Jimmy Carr said, don't invite me on the shows because I'll just offend someone.
Yeah, he did, yeah. And they
that's
still
what he
invited
does.
him on, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't having a go at anybody. He didn't point the finger at anybody individually.
Yeah.
He didn't mock a group of people. He told a joke.
Yeah.
And
he actually said 2 words.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. But anyway, we'll have to leave
That's
that to
the
other people
world
to
in which
research,
we live,
I'm afraid.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
what can you do?
Indeed.
Now, let me see if I read out a few more here.
Okay.
Just because... Now, Al says, and I must have missed this, this was about 7 minutes ago, he said, I think Mike Parry just said something nice and complimentary to you.
Well, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I don't remember that.
When I was asked about who is my best friend, was it you or was it...
well, Piers Morgan or me
Piers
were the
Morgan,
most
that's it,
irritating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, you just said I wasn't as irritating as him.
Well, I didn't say that. I said that neither of them irritate me. I'd known you longer than Piers, that's all. Yeah.
And Robbie says, if you go for that Christmas plank, you can get tin carnation cream for dessert.
Well, that'll do me. I'd love that.
You'd be happy
There's
with
no
that and
problem
some
there.
jelly.
Put that over a tin of pears, right?
Yeah.
And maybe a few strawberries. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, well, I look forward to it.
No
So,
problem.
now we've got Porky Vision coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we've already established that the Porky quiz is now going to be on Surrey. I'm not going to say Stockbroker Belt Surrey because that might make it too specific.
Okay, yeah.
Surrey's quite a big county, isn't it?
Yeah, Surrey's a big county, but, I know it. I've driven around it. I've lived in it. I've bought houses in it. I've done business in it. I know people at the highest end of Surrey society. I know people at the lowest end of Surrey society. I've used golf clubs there. I think I'll be a bit of an expert on this one, really.
You've used golf clubs there? What do you mean, to beat people?
No. I've hired golf clubs for events and lunches and all that kind of stuff, okay? Yeah, I know these things.
Now, Dennis says he's doing late-night laundry in Atlanta, Georgia, listening to the show. Heard Porky wants to come back as a bird.
Yeah, why not?
How ridiculous.
Why not? Yeah.
And here's one
imagine flying. It'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
World Traveller. Porky pays tribute to Emily Bishop from Corrie for her contribution, but of course he has no idea of the name of the actress.
Yes, I do.
What's her name?
Eileen Nugent.
Is it?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I think it's Eileen Derbyshire, apparently.
Eileen Derbyshire?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, OK. Eileen Derbyshire.
It's easy to confuse the two, though. They sound very similar.
It is, yeah. Indeed, yeah. Yeah.
One's a county in England, and the other one isn't.
Yeah, there's a story here, just before we go.
We can't go. It's time for the news.
Paperboy for 68 years. Reliable John Cooper started in 1947.
What are you doing?
What a dope.
He's a dope, is he? It's shocking.
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
It's just drivel.
Look at the light!